Chapter 151. In fact, most pure-blood families with a glamorous appearance are just superficial. The reason why they only have a bright appearance is because they have almost no source of income. What kind of wealth does a typical pure-blood family have? You can refer to the Malfoy family or the Black family. They own a magnificent and huge manor, usually with a house elf in charge of taking care of it, and they have a collection of antiques, gold and silverware that are hundreds of years old. They usually have a family vault at the bottom of Gringotts, which contains mountains of gold. However, the manor is usually their ancestral home. Although it is extremely valuable, it cannot be liquidated at all. House elves cannot be traded. Although antiques may seem priceless, if one day you want to sell them or discount them for cash, you will find that they won't fetch many galleons at all. And the gold in the vast majority of family vaults will only become less and less as it is consumed from generation to generation. This gold is often accumulated by the ancestors of pure-blood families over several generations. It may come from the wealth obtained from making alchemical items and refining potions, or it may be the wealth obtained from playing tricks in front of muggles, or it may even be found in gold. A treasure or a gold mine or something. But as time goes by, the accumulation of wealth will become more and more difficult. With the continuous development of muggles, it has become increasingly difficult to obtain wealth from them, especially after the promulgation of the International Necromancer Federation Secrecy Act. Obtaining wealth from muggles through magic is completely prohibited. Definitely accept Yeting's method, because that is just muggle-style investment. With the continuous development of necromancer society and the continuous rise of major magic schools, the pure-blood family's educational monopoly on magic was soon broken. These public education organizations, led by Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, brought necromancers there is a renaissance in society. The knowledge of spells, alchemy, potions, etc. is constantly being disclosed. Masters of alchemy and potions among mixed necromancers are constantly emerging. The number of competitors is increasing. Magic props and potions are the price continues to drop. Pure-blood families can no longer use alchemy and potions to obtain large amounts of got rich. But in the necromancer world, apart from the production of alchemy, potions, and herbal medicines, there are few other industries with sustainable output. In fact, Harry Potter's necromancer world has reached the threshold of extremely rich material production, which can be regarded as reaching the GCZY threshold. Although the magic in the world of Harry Potter lacks lethality, it is quite powerful in terms of production and life. This directly results in the most basic survival resources such as food, water, clothing, etc. becoming quite cheap. Definitely, this is not entirely due to shape-shifting. In fact, there are 5 major exceptions to Gamp's basic law of shape-shifting: food, magic items, magical creatures, non-existent entities, and concepts without collective form. These 5 exceptions are beyond the reach of shape-shifting. However, magic can achieve this in other ways. In terms of food, magic can turn a small amount of food into a large amount. The most typical ones are the magnification spell and the replication spell. It can also make crops grow faster and larger, and can bring a bumper harvest to barren farmland. Even Hagrid is not good at it. A magical necromancer can use the puffing spell to make his pumpkins grow taller than adults. Not to mention water, a water-making spell can solve all problems. In terms of clothing, furniture, and even residences, it is quite convenient to manufacture them through magic. Controlling the movement of matter is originally the most basic magic method. Shape-shifting spells are also very effective in manufacturing these daily necessities. Some superb necromancers can even simplify the complex process of making a certain piece of furniture or a certain dish into a short spell. That is to say, as long as the raw materials are available and the corresponding spell is known, even a British witch who has never been in the kitchen can also complete a portion of Kung Pao chicken. In fact, in the necromancer world, magic books about cooking and housework are very popular among housewives. For example, poor families in necromancer like the Weasley family only worry because they have to educate 4 or 5 children and cannot afford new magic books and wands. Even though their family couldn't even afford a single gold galleon, they could still live in a large house of over 100 square meters with an endless yard, and the family could still eat whatever they wanted all day long. But these are still a luxury for many muggles who far exceed them in wealth. Therefore, for necromancers, apart from the production of magic items, all industries are worthless. Anyway, why spend money to buy things that can be obtained through magic spells? However, a pure-blood family spends a large amount of wealth every year in order to maintain the family's luxurious life, communicate with other families, and manage various classes, and this kind of wealth consumption is far from the Ministry of Magic. You can make money by holding a position, or opening 1 or 2 alchemy props or potion shops. All this led to their continued decline and degradation. In fact, many pure-blood families with a long history have become obsolete due to their inability to make ends meet, abandoning the last traces of their dignity. There are still many families who can only survive by borrowing money from Gringotts. And this is one of the reasons why Voldemort inherited the concept of pure-blood supremacy from Slytherin, or Gellert Grindelwald's concept of necromancer supremacy to attract these pure-blood families. According to Voldemort or Grindelwald's ideas, necromancers can abandon the International Necromancer Federation secrecy law, take the initiative to appear in front of Muggles, defeat and control Muggle society through magic, plunder Muggle wealth, and enslave Muggles. Through this method, the pure-blood family can obtain a large amount of wealth and resources from Muggles, once again filling their treasury in Gringotts, allowing their family to continue to enjoy the same luxury as before. Life. Among them, Voldemort went one step further than Grindelwald. Not only did he want to enslave Muggles, he also rejected Muggle-born necromancers and looked down upon mixed-race necromancers. He hopes to establish a necromancer society where power is in the hands of pure-blood necromancers. In such a society, pure-blood necromancers are the privileged class. They exploit mixed blood and Muggle-born necromancers and exclude the emergence of Muggle necromancers. Since Muggle necromancers had no access to the necromancer world before awakening magic, their families had no access to the necromancer world, so whether they could access magic completely relied on the initiative of the necromancer world. In this way, their power could be completely controlled by pure-blood necromancers. Unable to resist. In Yeting's view, Grindelwald's idea was quite ridiculous, but Voldemort's strategy was more feasible. Because the necromancer world's demand for the Muggle world is not as big as expected. Chapter 152. As Yeting gradually understood the world of necromancers, he discovered that with magic, necromancers were able to take care of all their own food, clothing, housing, and transportation. Most of the things that needed to be obtained through transactions were also magic items or magic knowledge. No matter how powerful the productivity of the Muggle world is, as long as they cannot produce magic items, necromancers will not have much demand for their existence. Definitely, necromancers still need to marry Muggles or recruit necromancers born from Muggles, otherwise without Muggles, necromancers would have become extinct long ago, and breeding ability is also the reason why many pure-blood families have disappeared. The so-called acquisition of wealth by pure-blood families from the Muggle world only happened before the necromancer world and the Muggle world were completely separated. At that time, because the renaissance of necromancer society had not yet begun, many spells that could meet the basic necessities of life for necromancers had not yet been popularized or invented. At that time, necromancer society still had certain needs for Muggle society. After the Renaissance, the necromancer world developed basic education, and the magic field ushered in great development. Necromancers were gradually able to escape the material needs of Muggle society. From that time on, the Ministry of Magic in 113 countries began to promote the implementation of the International Necromancer Federation confidentiality law. After that, transactions with the Muggle community were handed over to the Ministry of Magic and Gringotts for unified processing. This is why Yeting was able to use Muggle currency to exchange gold galleons from Gringotts. However, Yeting estimates that Gringotts' demand for Muggle currency is actually limited, and most of the money will be used to purchase some hard-to-collect potion materials, such as African tree snake skin. African tree snakes are very hard to find. But they are not magical creatures, so they can be collected by Muggles, so the so-called Muggle currency impact on Wujianrong is completely impossible to happen. With enough Muggle currency reserves, Gringotts can completely collect them in a very long time. Large amounts of Muggle currency will not be exchanged for a long time. According to Grindelwald's idea, letting the necromancer enslave the Muggles actually has no meaning at all except that the necromancer no longer avoids the Muggles. Not to mention whether the number of necromancers is enough to control Muggles. What if it succeeds? Let Muggles produce some worthless things for them? They have to work hard for these worthless products. To control Muggles, you also have to beware of Muggle resistance. Apart from saving face, it is totally worth the loss. As for Voldemort's idea of establishing social hierarchy through blood, this is slightly more reliable than Grindelwald, but in fact, Voldemort still has not seen through the essential problem of today's necromancer world, that is, there are no Muggles, all necromancers extinct. Even if Voldemort succeeds, the necromancer world will still have to face the problem of declining population. Necromancers either choose to become extinct or marry Muggles. There is no third way. The Christmas holidays are quickly over. 1 week after the new semester started, Ravenclaw and Slytherin had a fight. The referee of the game was Professor Snape, and his referee was quite biased towards Slytherin. In this game, Slytherin used all their tactics. Their foul tactics once suppressed the highly skilled and well-trained Ravenclaw, and they were expected to defeat their opponents and win. But all this was broken by Zhang Qiu. In this game, Zhang Qiu's performance far exceeded the previous game. Throughout the game, she was like Merlin's elf flying in the air. The Slytherin players tried their best but did not touch her at all. Every time she made a wonderful dodge against a Slytherin member, she would cause a burst of cheers. And when she used Yeting's original specialty, overclocking to break through Slytherin's pincer detection tactic, all the audience spontaneously stood up. Applause for her. The Park and Clamp is a Quidditch tactic believed to have been invented by the original members of Wigtown Wanderers. In this tactic, 2 players approach one of the other players from the wings, while the 3 players rush towards the flying layer. In the end, even under the crazy interference of her opponent, it only took her 15 minutes to catch the golden snitch, ending the game in one fell swoop. Your performance is really great. After the game, Yeting praised Zhang Qiu. Although I have said it many times before, I still have to say this, you are indeed very capable in flight. Yeting's praise made her blush so much that she almost shed tears. She felt that this made her even happier than the cheers from the little necromancer who had just accepted the entire Ravenclaw house. However, out of modesty and reserve, she still spoke softly. He said, "Actually, I'm not as good as you say." "No, you said it better than me." Yeting shook his head and said seriously, "I think your Quidditch level is enough to join the national team. I still remember that it was held in this country," referring to the United Kingdom, "in August this year, the Quidditch World Cup. I have already planned it. I will continue to strengthen your training this semester and further modify your broomstick. After the holiday, I will introduce you to the England team for training. As long as if you perform well, you can shine in the World Cup." World Cup? Can it really be done? Zhang Qiu was so excited that he was speechless. What? Yeting raised his eyebrows. Are you doubting my ability? No, Zhang Qiu explained hesitantly, I just think I'm too young, I'm only 15 years old now. So what? Yeting looked unconcerned. Victor Krum from Dumstrang Academy of Magic is only 17 years old, but he has already been selected for the Bulgarian team to become their target. Got it. Your skills are much better than his, and I believe you can do it. I know Ludo Bagman from the Department of Magical Games and Sports, definitely from the Wiesengamot, and he will introduce you to the England team. Yeting's promise gave Zhang Qiu great expectations. This was the World Cup. As a Quidditch enthusiast, nothing could be more exciting than participating in the World Cup. This also led to Zhang Qiu's subsequent training. Qiu worked much harder than before. She was determined to be recognized in the training of the England team, enter the World Cup, and then make a splash in the World Cup. If I become the most dazzling star in the World Cup, he will definitely like me more. What Yeting didn't know was that this was actually her most fundamental idea and the fundamental motivation for his efforts. Zhang Qiu's character design, I always thought it would be best to let her play Zhang Qiu. You can't put real pictures, that's all. Chapter 152. As Yeting gradually understood the world of necromancers, he discovered that with magic, necromancers were able to take care of all their own food, clothing, housing, and transportation. Most of the things that needed to be obtained through transactions were also magic items or magic knowledge. No matter how powerful the productivity of the Muggle world is, as long as they cannot produce magic items, necromancers will not have much demand for their existence. Definitely, necromancers still need to marry Muggles or recruit necromancers born from Muggles. Otherwise, without Muggles, necromancers would have become extinct long ago, and breeding ability is also the reason why many pure-blood families have disappeared. The so-called acquisition of wealth by pure-blood families from the Muggle world only happened before the necromancer world and the Muggle world were completely separated. At that time, because the renaissance of necromancer society had not yet begun, many spells that could meet the basic necessities of life for necromancers had not yet been popularized or invented. At that time, necromancer society still had certain needs for Muggle society. After the Renaissance, the necromancer world developed basic education, and the magic field ushered in great development. Necromancers were gradually able to escape the material needs of Muggle society. From that time on, the Ministry of Magic in 113 countries began to promote the implementation of the International Necromancer Federation Confidentiality Law. After that, transactions with the Muggle community were handed over to the Ministry of Magic and Gringotts for unified processing. This is why Yeting was able to use Muggle currency to exchange gold galleons from Gringotts. However, Yeting estimates that Gringotts' demand for Muggle currency is actually limited, and most of the money will be used to purchase some hard-to-collect potion materials, such as African tree snake skin. African tree snakes are very hard to find. But they are not magical creatures, so they can be collected by Muggles, so the so-called Muggle currency impact on Wujianrong is completely impossible to happen. With enough Muggle currency reserves, Gringotts can completely collect them in a very long time. Large amounts of Muggle currency will not be exchanged for a long time. According to Grindelwald's idea, letting the Necromancer enslave the Muggles actually has no meaning at all except that the Necromancer no longer avoids the Muggles. Not to mention whether the number of Necromancers is enough to control Muggles. What if it succeeds? Let Muggles produce some worthless things for them? They have to work hard for these worthless products. To control Muggles, you also have to beware of Muggle resistance. Apart from saving face, it is totally worth the loss. As for Voldemort's idea of establishing social hierarchy through blood, this is slightly more reliable than Grindelwald, but in fact, Voldemort still has not seen through the essential problem of today's Necromancer world, that is, there are no Muggles, all Necromancers extinct. Even if Voldemort succeeds, the Necromancer world will still have to face the problem of declining population. Necromancers either choose to become extinct or marry Muggles. There is no third way. The Christmas holidays are quickly over. 1 week after the new semester started, Ravenclaw and Slytherin had a fight. The referee of the game was Professor Snape, and his referee was quite biased towards Slytherin. In this game, Slytherin used all their tactics. Their foul tactics once suppressed the highly skilled and well-trained Ravenclaw, and they were expected to defeat their opponents and win. But all this was broken by Zhang Qiu. In this game, Zhang Qiu's performance far exceeded the previous game. Throughout the game, she was like Merlin's elf flying in the air. The Slytherin players tried their best but did not touch her at all. Every time she made a wonderful dodge against a Slytherin member, she would cause a burst of cheers. And when she used Yeting's original specialty, overclocking to break through Slytherin's pincer detection tactic, all the audience spontaneously stood up. Applause for her. The Park and Clamp is a Quidditch tactic believed to have been invented by the original members of Wigtown Wanderers. In this tactic, 2 players approach one of the other players from the wings, while the 3 players rush towards the flying layer. In the end, even under the crazy interference of her opponent, it only took her 15 minutes to catch the golden snitch, ending the game in one fell swoop. Your performance is really great. After the game, Yeting praised Zhang Qiu. Although I have said it many times before, I still have to say this, you are indeed very capable in flight. Yeting's praise made her blush so much that she almost shed tears. She felt that this made her even happier than the cheers from the little necromancer who had just accepted the entire Ravenclaw house. However, out of modesty and reserve, she still spoke softly. He said, "Actually, I'm not as good as you say." "No, you said it better than me." Yeting shook his head and said seriously, "I think your Quidditch level is enough to join the national team. I still remember that it was held in this country," referring to the United Kingdom, "in August this year, the Quidditch World Cup. I have already planned it. I will continue to strengthen your training this semester and further modify your broomstick. After the holiday, I will introduce you to the England team for training. As long as if you perform well, you can shine in the World Cup." World Cup? Can it really be done? Zhang Qiu was so excited that he was speechless. What? Yeting raised his eyebrows. Are you doubting my ability? No, Zhang Qiu explained hesitantly, I just think I'm too young, I'm only 15 years old now. So what? Yeting looked unconcerned. Victor Krum from Dumstrang Academy of Magic is only 17 years old, but he has already been selected for the Bulgarian team to become their target. Got it. Your skills are much better than his, and I believe you can do it. I know Ludo Bagman from the Department of Magical Games and Sports, definitely from the Wiesengamot, and he will introduce you to the England team. Yeting's promise gave Zhang Qiu great expectations. This was the World Cup. As a Quidditch enthusiast, nothing could be more exciting than participating in the World Cup. This also led to Zhang Qiu's subsequent training. Qiu worked much harder than before. She was determined to be recognized in the training of the England team, enter the World Cup, and then make a splash in the World Cup. If I become the most dazzling star in the World Cup, he will definitely like me more. What Yeting didn't know was that this was actually her most fundamental idea and the fundamental motivation for his efforts. Zhongqiu's character design. I always thought it would be best to let her play Zhongqiu. You can't put real pictures, that's all. Chapter 152. As Yeting gradually understood the world of necromancers, he discovered that with magic, necromancers were able to take care of all their own food, clothing, housing, and transportation. Most of the things that needed to be obtained through transactions were also magic items or magic knowledge. No matter how powerful the productivity of the Muggle world is, as long as they cannot produce magic items, necromancers will not have much demand for their existence. Definitely, necromancers still need to marry Muggles or recruit necromancers born from Muggles, otherwise without Muggles, necromancers would have become extinct long ago, and breeding ability is also the reason why many pure-blood families have disappeared. The so-called acquisition of wealth by pure-blood families from the Muggle world only happened before the necromancer world and the Muggle world were completely separated. At that time, because the renaissance of necromancer society had not yet begun, many spells that could meet the basic necessities of life for necromancers had not yet been popularized or invented. At that time, necromancer society still had certain needs for Muggle society. After the Renaissance, the necromancer world developed basic education, and the magic field ushered in great development. Necromancers were gradually able to escape the material needs of Muggle society. From that time on, the Ministry of Magic in 113 countries began to promote the implementation of the International Necromancer Federation confidentiality law. After that, transactions with the Muggle community were handed over to the Ministry of Magic and Gringotts for unified processing. This is why Yeting was able to use Muggle currency to exchange gold galleons from Gringotts. However, Yeting estimates that Gringotts' demand for Muggle currency is actually limited, and most of the money will be used to purchase some hard-to-collect potion materials, such as African tree snake skin. African tree snakes are very hard to find. But they are not magical creatures, so they can be collected by Muggles, so the so-called Muggle currency impact on Wujianrong is completely impossible to happen. With enough Muggle currency reserves, Gringotts can completely collect them in a very long time. Large amounts of Muggle currency will not be exchanged for a long time. According to Grindelwald's idea, letting the necromancer enslave the Muggles actually has no meaning at all except that the necromancer no longer avoids the Muggles. Not to mention whether the number of necromancers is enough to control Muggles. What if it succeeds? Let Muggles produce some worthless things for them? They have to work hard for these worthless products. To control Muggles, you also have to beware of Muggle resistance. Apart from saving face, it is totally worth the loss. As for Voldemort's idea of establishing social hierarchy through blood, this is slightly more reliable than Grindelwald, but in fact, Voldemort still has not seen through the essential problem of today's necromancer world, that is, there are no Muggles, all necromancers extinct. Even if Voldemort succeeds, the necromancer world will still have to face the problem of declining population. Necromancers either choose to become extinct or marry Muggles. There is no third way. The Christmas holidays are quickly over. 1 week after the new semester started, Ravenclaw and Slytherin had a fight. The referee of the game was Professor Snape, and his referee was quite biased towards Slytherin. In this game, Slytherin used all their tactics. Their foul tactics once suppressed the highly skilled and well-trained Ravenclaw, and they were expected to defeat their opponents and win. But all this was broken by Zhongqiu. In this game, Zhongqiu's performance far exceeded the previous game. Throughout the game, she was like Merlin's elf flying in the air. The Slytherin players tried their best but did not touch her at all. Every time she made a wonderful dodge against a Slytherin member, she would cause a burst of cheers. And when she used Yeting's original specialty, overclocking to break through Slytherin's pincer detection tactic, all the audience spontaneously stood up. Applause for her. The Parkin Clamp is a Quidditch tactic believed to have been invented by the original members of Wigtown Wanderers. In this tactic, 2 players approach one of the other players from the wings, while the 3 players rush towards the flying layer. In the end, even under the crazy interference of her opponent, it only took her 15 minutes to catch the golden snitch, ending the game in one fell swoop. Your performance is really great. After the game, Yeting praised Zhongqiu. Although I have said it many times before, I still have to say this, you are indeed very capable in flight. Yeting's praise made her blush so much that she almost shed tears. She felt that this made her even happier than the cheers from the little necromancer who had just accepted the entire Ravenclaw house. However, out of modesty and reserve, she still spoke softly. He said, actually, I'm not as good as you say. No, you said it better than me. Yeting shook his head and said seriously, I think your Quidditch level is enough to join the national team. I still remember that it was held in this country, referring to the United Kingdom, in August this year, the Quidditch World Cup. I have already planned it. I will continue to strengthen your training this semester and further modify your broomstick. After the holiday, I will introduce you to the England team for training. As long as if you perform well, you can shine in the World Cup. World Cup? Can it really be done? Zhang Qiu was so excited that he was speechless. What? Yeting raised his eyebrows, are you doubting my ability? No. No, Zhang Qiu explained hesitantly, I just think I'm too young, I'm only 15 years old now. So what? Yeting looked unconcerned, Victor Krum from Dumstrang Academy of Magic is only 17 years old, but he has already been selected for the Bulgarian team to become their target. Got it. Your skills are much better than his, and I believe you can do it. I know Ludo Bagman from the Department of Magical Games and Sports, definitely from the Wiesengamot, and he will introduce you to the England team. Yeting's promise gave Zhang Qiu great expectations. This was the World Cup. As a Quidditch enthusiast, nothing could be more exciting than participating in the World Cup. This also led to Zhang Qiu's subsequent training. Qiu worked much harder than before. She was determined to be recognized in the training of the England team, enter the World Cup, and then make a splash in the World Cup. If I become the most dazzling star in the World Cup, he will definitely like me more. What Yeting didn't know was that this was actually her most fundamental idea and the fundamental motivation for his efforts. Zhang Qiu's character design, I always thought it would be best to let her play Zhang Qiu. You can't put real pictures, that's all. Chapter 154. The night after the game ended, Harry fell asleep with unwillingness and disappointment. On this day, he failed both on the court and in love, and the person who caused his failure was the same person. Yeting, the genius of Ravenclaw, won the Order of Merlin 3 times, and was the Necromancer chess champion. He led them to defeat Professor Quirrell in the 1st grade. He also killed a basilisk in the 2nd grade. The world is like nothing can trouble him. Why did it become like this? For the first time, I received my favorite broomstick as a gift, for the first time, I had someone I like. These two pleasant things were intertwined. And these two joys will bring me a lot of joy. I should have had this kind of dreamlike happy time. But why did it become this number dr? Just as he was thinking about these unknown things in his dream, a scream woke him up. When Harry woke up, he was completely disoriented in the darkness. He groped for the curtains around the bed and heard movement around him. Zico Fei's sweet voice came from the other end of the room. What's the matter? Ron sat up on the bed, the 04 curtain was pulled aside, and there was a look of extreme horror on his face. Black, Sirius Black, have a knife. What? Right here. What happened just now? It cut the bed curtain. It woke me up. Are you sure you're not dreaming, Ron? Dean asked. Look at that curtain. I'm telling you, he was here just now. They all crawled out of bed. Harry was the first to reach the dormitory door, and they ran downstairs at full speed. The doors behind them opened one after another, and many sleepy voices asked them questions. Who was yelling just now? What are you doing? Finally, their shouts attracted Professor McGonagall, and from the mouth of Sir Cadogan, the new portrait guarding the Gryffindor lounge, they learned bad news. Black had indeed come, and he had found Neville. Longbarton's note recording the password, this boy is indeed not smart, has a poor memory, and is very careless. That night, no one in Gryffindor house slept. They knew the castle had been raided again, and the entire Gryffindor house was waiting in the common room to hear if Black had been caught. At dawn, Professor McGonagall returned and told everyone that Black had escaped again. The next day, wherever they went, they saw security measures tightened. Professor Flitwick was holding a large photo of Black and teaching everyone who was guarding the front door identification. From small cracks to rat holes, he nailed them with wooden boards. Lord Cadogan was dismissed, his portrait returned to the lonely landing on the 8th floor, and the fat lady returned. The college professionally repaired the fat lady, but she was still extremely nervous. Her return to work was conditional, she must be specially protected. So Dumbledore hired a group of rough and rude dwarfs to protect her. They walked menacingly down the corridor, muttering, comparing the size of the sticks in their hands. However, this incident made Dumbledore discover a doubt, that is Sirius's goal. According to the Ministry of Magic and his judgment, Sirius's target should be Harry Potter. Because it was Black's betrayal that led to the misfortune of Harry's family, he was well aware of the complex connection between Voldemort and Harry, but that night, Sirius appeared in front of Ron Weasley's bed, obviously Harry Potter was sleeping next to him. And, why did Black escape without doing anything in the end? If he wanted to kill Ron, he had a chance. After learning about this, in the portrait of the principal on the wall of the principal's office, Phineas Nigellus Black spoke. Albus, I told you that my great-great-grandson is innocent. There is no way he could do something like that. You should find a way to find out the truth and clear his name. You also know the virtues of those in the Ministry of Magic. Those politicians only care about face and profit. If they are unable to find out the truth, it may be difficult for my poor great-great-grandson to escape the Dementor's kiss. He is the last member of our family. This time Phineas was really anxious. As the headmaster who was born in Slytherin, he had always disliked Dumbledore and was not very willing to help him because he felt that Dumbledore was very weird and had a certain attitude towards Ma. People of Gwa origin are very close to each other. I understand, Phineas, Dumbledore nodded seriously, if I really find out that Black is innocent, I will do my best to help him. Albus, take action quickly. Phineas in the photo looked very sad and anxious, and then he seemed to have thought of something. You can go find that Ravenclaw boy, Basil. Fronsack, a headmaster from Ravenclaw who served in the mid-20th century, after Armando Dippet and before Dumbledore, has been bragging to me that his level is comparable to yours, although I don't really believe that a Muggle-born boy can reach such a level, but now I can only trust him. You can ask him for me to see if he has any good ideas. The principals in all the photos thought this was a good idea, and they also wanted to meet the young man Yeting. He was not that famous when they met 2 times before, until this trip to the Ministry of Magic. Soon, Yeting was invited to the principal's office by Dumbledore, saying that he wanted to negotiate a deal with him. Oh, look, who's here? As soon as Yeting entered the principal's office, Basil greeted him enthusiastically. Hi, our little genius from Ravenclaw, long time no see. Long time no see, Basil. Yeting nodded to him, and then looked at Dumbledore. Do you have any help for the professor to come to me? For the sake of the Ministry of Magic, as long as it's not too much. I can promise you any difficult thing. Oh, I'm glad you can remember my favor, Dumbledore said to him with a smile, but you don't need to take it to heart. You originally have enough ability to exert influence on the Wizengamot, and I just gave you a gentle push. After all, I am just an old man, and the future is in your hands. Moreover, the client of this matter is not just me. I dare say that there will definitely be the reward you want from the client. Then, Phineas in the photo frame spoke. He told Yeting everything he knew, and said, if you can find evidence that he is innocent, I will tell Yeting what he has learned over the years. The collection is open to you, you can take whatever you want, and believe me, the Black family still has many valuable collections from hundreds of years ago. Azkaban ends today or tomorrow, and I can't go back to school until tomorrow, so the updates may be unstable, but the 4th update will not change. Chapter 155. When he heard Phineas's request, Yeting was actually a little confused. I heard that the dead generally don't interfere too much in the world of the living, he asked a little strangely. Why do you still care about such a thing? Besides, shouldn't Sirius be removed from the Black family? Yes, Phineas said in a sad tone, but Sirius is already the last Black, if he dies too. So, get rid of you. Okay, I agree. Yeting glanced at Phineas with pity, feeling a little emotional in his heart. This old man would still work hard for his family even after he died. Although Yeting knew the truth about everything, he still had to pretend, so he asked Dumbledore to provide him with more clues. Dumbledore opened a black cabinet. There was a shallow stone basin in the cabinet. There were strange carvings on the mouth of the basin. Yeting could tell that they were some runes and magic symbols. There is a silvery light shining in the basin, making it unclear whether it is a liquid or a gas. It is like a piece of bright silver, but it is constantly flowing, like water ripples in the breeze, and spreads out elegantly like clouds. Spin gently. It is like light turning into liquid, or like wind becoming solid. Yeting knew that it was a pensieve, and what was in the basin was Dumbledore's memory. Dumbledore motioned to Yeting to get closer. When Nightstop put his head into the basin, he found some pictures appearing in front of him. These pictures were Dumbledore's memories of Black's events back then. Although Yeting knew most of this information through the original work, he still read this memory from beginning to end patiently. As a result, Yeting Mai was immersed in memories. After a long time, which seemed like only a moment, he finally finished watching. After sticking his head out of the pensieve, Yeting pretended to think for a while under the gaze of Dumbledore and the previous principals, and then put on a slightly gained expression. "How's it going? Did you find anything?" Phineas in the photo frame looked at Yeting eagerly. "Well, yes." Yeting nodded and muttered, "I noticed a detail. In Professor Dumbledore's memory, when Black was captured in Azkaban due to the Dementors, he's a little mentally disturbed, but he keeps mumbling Peter Pettigrew's name. Is that right, Professor?" "That's right." Dumbledore nodded. "Blake has been friends with Peter for many years. I think he was angry or sad about killing Peter Pettigrew. Is there any problem?" "Yes, there must be a problem here." Yeting nodded and put his hands on his shoulders, showing a confident smile. When Blake was chanting this name when he was mentally disturbed, it must be because this name gave him a deep impression and made him it's hard for him to forget, but why doesn't he say James Potter's name? Because his betrayal killed his best friend, Black should feel more guilty towards James Potter. I think he will say it Peter Pettigrew had another reason. I still remember that although people said that Black killed 12 muggles with just one spell, there was also a necromancer, Peter Pettigrew. But apart from the bodies of the muggles, only Pettigrew was found at the scene. One of Peter's fingers. You mean, is it possible that Peter Pettigrew is not dead? Dumbledore was keenly aware of what Yeting meant. Yes, after all, there is only one finger left, which does not completely prove his death. I think the reason why Black was thrown into Azkaban in such a hurry was because the necromancer world at that time was not peaceful. Well, in this case, it is inevitable that the case will be closed in a hurry and the details will be ignored. Yeting guessed. Dumbledore nodded in agreement. In addition, Yeting came up with another guess. Your memory mentioned that James Potter's secret keeper is Sirius Black. Is just your guess, right? Dumbledore nodded. This was also the opinion of everyone at the time. After all, Sirius and James had the closest relationship. He then added. Then, by combining this information, we can make a bold guess. Yeting seemed very confident. There may be someone else who betrayed James Potter back then, and it was most likely Peter Pettigrew. After all, since everyone thinks that James Potter's secret keeper must be Black, isn't it too obvious that Black is the secret keeper? With the wisdom of James Potter and Black, wouldn't they have thought of this? If what you said is true, then... Phineas looked a little excited. Yes, I think the secret keeper of James's loyalty curse should have been Peter Pettigrew. No one other than Black knew about it. And after James Potter was killed by Voldemort because of the leak of the loyalty curse, everyone thought that the leaker was Sirius Black. But only he knew who the real traitor was. The so-called Black killed 13 lives. It is possible that he went to capture Peter Pettigrew, but Peter Pettigrew successfully faked his death and escaped. And left a finger to frame Black. Wonderful analysis. Dumbledore looked at Yeting in admiration and clapped his hands, and the previous principals in the photo frame also burst into applause. I can always hear valuable ideas from you, so now there is another question. Dumbledore looked at Yeting. Yeting understood immediately. Ron Weasley, why did Black come to him instead of looking for Harry? After all, in the entire Hogwarts, only Harry has some contact with him. This is what the professor wants to ask, right? Yes, I am indeed a little strange about this. I have been thinking about it, but I can't figure out why he found Ron. Yes, this is a doubtful point. Yeting nodded and added, there is another question, how did Blake escape from prison? I mean, Black can't get anything in Azkaban. If he has the means to escape from prison, this means can only be already available, unless it can be proven that he has an accomplice, but according to the investigation, Black is completely it was a man, Lade Zhao, who escaped. So, the real question is, if Black had been able to escape from prison long ago, why did he choose this time to escape? Could all this have something to do with Ron? Dumbledore thought for a moment and then sighed, indeed, I didn't think of this either. This is indeed an excellent starting point for the question. Yes, Professor, you can ask Fudge. Speaking of Fudge, Yeting showed a contemptuous smile. Look at what news he or others brought to Black when they went to Azkaban to inspect the construction. Maybe it was a Daily Prophet that mentioned Ron somewhere. Sorry, I came back to the dormitory very late in the afternoon. I may not be able to update 4 times today, but it doesn't matter, any missed updates will be made up. In addition, Azkaban really doesn't have any big scenes to write about, it's just a detective game, after all, it's the famous detective Harry Potter. Chapter 156. Facts have proved that Yeting's guess is quite accurate. Fudge did bring a newspaper to Black when he inspected Azkaban, but now that newspaper has disappeared with Black's escape, but Dumbledore found another identical copy for reference. It was a copy of the Daily Prophet. After Yeting betrayed him, one of the news items immediately caught his attention. Ministry of Magic staff won big awards, and Arthur Weasley, director of the Ministry of Magic's Department for the Prohibition of the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts, received the Daily Prophet's annual Galleon Medal. An elated Mr. Weasley told a reporter from the Daily Prophet, "We will spend the money on a summer trip to Egypt. Our eldest son Bill is in Egypt doing spell-breaking work for Gringotts Wizarding Bank. The Weasleys will be staying in Egypt for a month. Come back before Hogwarts starts. There are currently 5 Weasley children attending school there." Yeting also saw a photo. In the photo, 9 members of the Weasley family were standing in front of the pyramids, all waving vigorously, and couldn't help but smile on their faces. Mrs. Weasley is small and plump, while the bald Mr. Weasley is tall. Their 6 sons and 1 daughter, 557, all have fiery red hair, although you can't tell from this black and white photo. Ron stands in the middle of the picture, tall and thin, with his pet mouse Scabbers on his shoulders and his arm around his sister Ginny. However, although news about Ron was found in the newspapers, it was also mentioned that he would be attending Hogwarts. But Dumbledore still couldn't figure out why Black would choose to escape from prison because of this. And he chased him all the way to Hogwarts. Faced with this question, Yeting pretended to ponder for a while, and then suddenly said hey as if she had discovered something. "I noticed something, Professor." He turned to Dumbledore, with a surprised expression on his face. "Did you notice it? This mouse on Ron's shoulder, look at his front paws." The mouse was missing a finger on its front paw. Dumbledore took a breath. Yeting could swear that he had never seen such a gloomy expression on Dumbledore's face. "I have a bold idea," Yeting said to Dumbledore with a serious expression. "I still remember what you mentioned in your memory. James Potter, Sirius Black, Peter Pettigrew, and Remus Lupin, the 4 of them have been best friends when they were at Hogwarts, and call themselves Marauders. I guess, they may all have the ability of Animagus. Or, the 4 of them secretly studied the Animagus together, definitely except for Professor Lupin, because he was originally a wolf." "Ah, you actually discovered that?" Dumbledore interjected. "I'm sorry that a werewolf came to be the professor, but he is indeed a good choice, isn't he?" "Oh, yes, this is obvious, isn't it? Professor Snape once invited me to help him refine Wolfsbane potion, and he has been hinting this among the students. Oh, by the way, even Miss Granger found out we have learned the truth, but we will not tell it." Yeting winked at Dumbledore and continued, "We can guess that Peter Pettigrew's Animagus is a mouse. That's why he can grow up for 12 years, he faked his death to escape everyone's search. Sirius Black also escaped from Azkaban through the Animagus ability. And he sneaked into Hogwarts again and again. You know, Dementors have never been interested in animals." Yes, everything can be explained in this way." Phineas in the photo frame also showed a happy expression. "It must have been through this newspaper that Blake discovered the traces of Peter Pettigrew. It is precisely because of this that he took the risk to escape from Azkaban. He was to, hunt down Peter Pettigrew and avenge James Potter. I knew that my great-great-grandson must be innocent. But all this is just our speculation, isn't it?" Dumbledore reminded him calmly. Yes, but that's easy to verify, isn't it?" Phineas said happily. "Definitely." Yeting nodded easily. "We can ask Professor Liu Ping. If my guess is correct, I believe Professor Liu Ping will be very happy to tell us the truth. After all, he doesn't want to see his friends of many years suffer unjust injustice." Following Yeting's tips, Dumbledore quickly discovered something. Dumbledore learned from Ron that the mouse in the photo of the Daily Prophet was his pet Scabbers, but according to Ron, his mouse Scabbers had disappeared a few days ago and was on his bed. Some blood stains and a few cat hairs were shed, and now he is using the cat hairs to track down the culprit who killed Banban. In addition, Dumbledore also discovered a fatal fact. Scabbers had been staying with the Weasley family for 12 years, and seemed to have been ill since last summer vacation. Ron bought Scabbers something for him in Diagon Alley. Got some rat-strengthening medicine. You know, an ordinary mouse can't live for 12 years, and the time when it starts to languish is after the news of Blake's escape from prison appears. On the other side, Professor Liu Ping also got good news, at least for Phineas. Liu Ping suddenly showed sadness after listening to Yeting's conjecture and seeing the newspaper. His expression looked like he was about to shed tears, and then he revealed a secret that he had held for many years in front of Yejian and Dumbledore. I was very young when I was bitten by a werewolf. My parents tried various methods, but it was hopeless at that time. The potion that Professor Snape gave me was only recently discovered. You must know that this kind of the medicine made me safe. However, before discovering Wolfsbane potion, I turned into a full-fledged wolf once a month. There was no way I would have come to Hogwarts, and there was no way other parents would have let me. My own children contact me. But then Dumbledore became the headmaster and he provided me with defensive measures. Lupin sighed and cast a grateful look at Dumbledore. Hogwarts planted a tree for me to beat people. Willow, there is another secret passage under the tree leading to the Shrieking Shack, and I have to go there for shape-shifting every month. Becoming a werewolf was very painful. I stayed away from people when I wanted to bite, so I bit myself and scratched myself. But at that time, except for the shape-shifting, I was happier than before. I had friends for the first time, 3 good friends. Sirius Black, Peter Pettigrew, and definitely James Potter. Chapter 157. Well, it's impossible for my 3 friends not to notice that I disappear once a month. I made up all kinds of stories, and I was particularly worried that they would ignore me once they found out that I was a werewolf. But, definitely, Yeting, they will like you. I realized the truth of the matter, and they didn't ignore me at all. Instead, they did something for me, which not only allowed me to endure the pain of shape-shifting, but also made the shape-shifting period the happiest time in my life. They learned about the animagus. They couldn't keep me company in human form, so they kept me company in animal form, and werewolves are only dangerous to people. They sneak out of the castle every month wearing an invisibility cloak. Peter turned into a mouse, so he could burrow into under the branches of the whomping willow. I pressed the knots that kept the tree still. Then they slid down the tunnel to find me. Under their influence, I became less dangerous. My body was still that of a wolf, but when they were together, my mind became less like a wolf. Definitely, sometimes I feel guilty and feel that I have betrayed Dumbledore's trust. When no other headmaster was willing to accept me, he accepted me, and he had no idea that I broke the code. This code was for me. And the safety of others. He never knew that I led 3 classmates to illegally learn to become animagus. Every time we sit down to plan our adventures for the next month, I always try to forget this responsibility. Feeling of guilt, and I haven't changed. Lupin's face hardened, and there was self-loathing in his voice. This year, I have been fighting with myself, undecided whether to tell Dumbledore, Sirius is a black dog's animagus. But I didn't say it. Why? Because I am too cowardly. Telling him means that I have betrayed his trust when I was a student, it means admitting that I have led others to be with me, and for me, his trust is extremely important. When I was a child, he accepted me when I entered school. I ran into obstacles everywhere as an adult. Because I was a werewolf and couldn't find a paying job, he gave me a job. In this way, I convinced myself that Sirius was using the evil magic he learned from Voldemort. Sneaking into the school, his becoming an animagus had nothing to do with it, so, in a sense, Snape was always right about me. Can you forgive me, Professor? At the end of his sentence, he looked at Dumbledore with tears in his eyes. This man who has always been strong actually shed tears. Oh, definitely. Dumbledore gave him a soft smile, as if he was looking at a young student rather than his black magic defense professor. I think they are all amazing. They can actually do this for them. A friend has achieved this. I think this is a special achievement. It is not easy to do this without letting me know. Remus Lupin did provide good help in finding Black and Peter. Not only did he tell many truths, but he also took out a weapon to find them, the Marauder's Map. The Marauder's Map is a magical map created by the Marauders when they were at Hogwarts. The cover reads, Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot and Prongs are for magical mischief makers. Dear gentlemen, we present you the Marauder's Map. It displays all the information about Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, not only showing the user every classroom, corridor, and corner in the castle, but also every inch of land on the school grounds, as well as the hidden secret passages. The positions of everyone are also indicated by dots on it. This map can also correctly identify each person, regardless of whether the person is an animagus, takes polyjuice potion, or uses an invisibility cloak. Even the ghost of Hogwarts will appear on the map. The map was confiscated by Filch when the Marauders were in their 7th year, and Fred and George Weasley stolen it from Filch's office in their 1st year. The map was the twins' pranksters provided a lot of help, and they also memorized the secret passages in Hogwarts. Later, they gave the map to Harry so that he could travel to Hogsmeade on weekends without permission. Later, Lupin discovered that Harry had the map and confiscated it. "This is our work back then," Lupin explained, introducing this prop in front of his principal Dumbledore. His expression looked very embarrassed. "After we were able to shapeshift, we quickly left the sharp it's called a shack and wanders around the school grounds and the village at night. I don't think any students at Hogwarts know the grounds of Hogwarts and the village of Hogsmeade as well as we do, so we drew this Marauders. The map was signed with our aliases. I was Moony, Sirius was Padfoot, and Peter was Wormtail. Would James buy a fork?" The moon face represents the werewolf, Padfoot represents the black dog, Wormtail represents the mouse, and the fork represents the stag. It is indeed an interesting metaphor. After carefully studying the map, Yeting came to this conclusion: the method of making the map is very clever. It does not operate through ordinary tracking magic at all, but based on the maker's understanding of the land depicted on the map. To understand in detail, in this way, the magic of hiding traces and blocking tracking loses its effect in front of this map. After all, no amount of anti-tracking magic can shield the entire land. Lupin tapped his wand on the Marauders map. "I solemnly swear that I have done nothing wrong." Thin lines of ink, as thin as a spider's web, immediately began to appear where the wand had just touched. These lines meet and cross each other, extending to every corner of the parchment. This map shows all the details of Hogwarts Castle and its various grounds. But the really noticeable things are the little dots of ink that move along the map, each labeled with a name in tiny letters. If Black and Peter had kids at Hogwarts, then they would name will also appear on it. Therefore, monitoring this Marauders map at all times became the new task of the investigation team. Soon, they discovered that Blake's name appeared near the Forbidden Forest, and it was estimated that he had been hiding in the Forbidden Forest, and Peter Pettigrew's name briefly appeared at the location of the Whomping Willow at some point, but soon just disappeared. It seems that after escaping from Ron, he has been hiding in the secret passage under the Whomping Willow and the Shrieking Shack at the other end of the secret passage. It will not appear on the map since it is not within the scope of Hogwarts. His name. Private. Today's 5th update, the Song of Ice and Fire session will begin today. Chapter 158. After discovering the target, Dumbledore immediately summoned the professors to prepare for the arrest of Peter Pettigrew and Sirius Black. Black must be controlled before everything is clear. Severus Snape volunteered to capture Black. He had indeed developed a great feud with the Marauders back then, and the ones he hated most were James Potter and Black. Therefore, Yeting and Snape were responsible for catching Black, while Dumbledore personally took Professor Flitwick and Professor McGonagall to capture Peter Pettigrew in the secret passage of the Whomping Willow. This was indeed a reasonable arrangement, for the Banlin, Yeting, and Snape are very familiar with it. They often go there to collect magic materials. As a dwarf, Professor Flitwick is more suitable for fighting in narrow secret passages, not to mention that Professor McGonagall's animagus is a cat. No matter how small it is, it can get into tree holes and open doors for others. She is the most suitable candidate for the secret passage or to capture Peter's mouse animagus. In less than half an hour, a black dog and a mouse appeared in the principal's office, and everyone gathered around them. Dumbledore also called in Harry Potter and Ron Weasley, whom he believed had a right to know the truth. "Isn't this my Scabbers?" Ron looked at the struggling rat on the ground and looked at Dumbledore pleadingly. "What are you going to do to Scabbers?" "Don't hurt it, okay?" "Oh, definitely, we will return him to you." Yeting glanced at Ron mockingly. "If he doesn't turn into some strange guy after we use the appearance magic on him." Dumbledore pointed his wand at the mouse, and the wand emitted 300 blue-white lights. Wong hung in midair, his little black body twisting wildly. Then the mouse fell down and landed on the floor. There was another blinding flash, and then it was like a quick shot of a tree growing. A head appeared on the ground, limbs stretched out. After a while, a man stood where Banban was, wringing his hands in fear. Seeing this scene, Ron was stunned. It was difficult for him to accept that his pet was actually a wizard. The man was very short, not much taller than Harry and Ron. His thin, light-colored hair was unkempt, and he had a large bald spot on the top of his head. His appearance is that of an obese person who has lost a lot of weight in a short period of time. His skin looked dirty, almost like patchy fur, and his pointed nose and watery little eyes still had the characteristics of a mouse. He looked at everyone, breathing quickly and weakly. "Oh, hello, Peter," Lupin said happily, as if it was often the case that mice turned into old classmates around him. "Long time no see." "Eda, Lu, Lupin, Dumbledore," Peter Pettigrew's voice was also high-pitched. His eyes quickly glanced towards the door again. "And professors." Seeing the enemy he had been pursuing for the first time again after 12 years, Black Dog suddenly took on the shape of a human, a mess of dirty, tangled hair hanging down to his elbows. If hidden in the deep, dark eye sockets, if his eyes didn't glow, he might be a corpse. The waxy skin clung to the skeleton of his face, looking like a skull. He grinned with yellow teeth and it was serious black. He struggled and rushed towards Peter Pettigrew, seemingly trying to strangle him to death with his withered hands, but Yeting waved his wand and subdued him, and he was tied to a chair. "I know you may be innocent, but before you want revenge, you have to let us know the truth," Yeling said lightly. Sirius glanced at him unwillingly, but nodded, and then slowly told everything he knew, while Lupin supplemented him. "I convinced Lily and James to replace me with Peter at the last minute, convincing them to use him as their secret keeper instead of me. I was to blame. I knew that I went to see them the night they died. Peter, making sure he was safe and sound, but by the time I got to where he was hiding, he was gone. But there were no signs of a struggle. Something doesn't feel right to me. I became afraid. I went directly to where Lily and James lived. When I saw their house, it was destroyed, and I also saw their bodies. I knew that Peter must have done something bad. Know what a mistake I made." When Peter heard Black's words, he immediately panicked, and large beads of sweat broke out on his pale face. He kept trying to defend himself, but Snape poured him a bottle of Verita serum, and he immediately told everything. Out. With Blake's explanation and Peter's confession, the truth of everything that year was finally revealed. Black strongly wanted revenge and wanted to kill Peter with his own hands, but Dumbledore proposed to let Harry Potter decide Peter's fate. "I think," Harry gasped. He looked at Peter with hate in his eyes, but finally made another decision: "We can hand him over to the Dementors, to the Ministry of Magic. You can go to Azkaban, just don't kill him." "You're the only one who has the authority to make the decision, Harry," Black said, "but think about it, think about what he's done." "He can go to Azkaban," Harry added, "if anyone should go there, it's him. Because I don't think my dad would want his best friend to kill someone, especially someone like him." Yeting pouted. "If it were him, he wouldn't do this. The laws of the Ministry of Magic and Necromancers can only restrict ordinary people, but they cannot deal with Voldemort. Peter was sent to Azkaban, and the end can be imagined." But Yeting still informed the Ministry of Magic, but he did not notify Fudge directly, but the director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement and his collaborator, Ms. Amelia Bones Black, was wrongly accused by the Ministry of Magic. The real culprit was Peter Pettigrew. If this incident was used well, it could cause huge amounts of damage to Fudge's prestige. Finding out the truth and capturing Peter Pettigrew would improve his own reputation. Prestige, why not? Soon, Bones appeared in the principal's office. Next to her was Scrimgeour, the director of the Auror office, and behind her were two Aurors. When these Aurors saw Yeting, they couldn't help but squeal. "Shake! Dumbledore, and yet, I just heard. Oh my god, Peter Pettigrew, he is still alive." Bones stared at Peter Pettigrew, who was tied to the chair in surprise, as if to make sure, is Peter Pettigrew a fake? "We already know the truth from his mouth," Dumbledore sighed. "Black has always been innocent. It was Peter Pettigrew who surrendered to the Dark Lord. We have recorded all the truth. But you can also ask it again from his mouth." Professor McGonagall handed a pile of parchment to the Auror behind Bones, which contained Black's statement and Peter's confession. "I think you should know what to do," Yeting reminded from the side. "Ah, yes, yes." Bones quickly reacted, "This is indeed a major mistake by the Ministry of Magic. The person in charge at the time must bear great responsibility for this. We will soon withdraw the wanted order for Black, and the Dementors will evacuate Hogwarts, but Since Black has concealed the fact that he is an animagus for a long time, a large fine will be levied on him. Definitely, the Ministry of Magic has wrongly imprisoned him for 12 years as compensation. We will also pay a compensation, which will probably be enough to cover the fine. What do you think? She is worthy of being the director of the Legal Enforcement Department of the Ministry of Magic, whose power is second only to Fudge. Although she is a fair and kind-hearted person, she is not ambiguous at all when it comes to playing power. In this way, he can not only attack Fudge by revealing the truth of the year, and also restored the face of the Ministry of Magic by levying a fine from Black for concealing the animagus, avoiding the argument that in order to attack political opponents, the overall interests of the Ministry of Magic were ignored. Black definitely had no objection. With the Black family's wealth, he wouldn't care about this little money. At the moment, he was eager to catch up with his godson, Harry Potter. Chapter 159. Within a few days, the Ministry of Magic broke big news. Sirius Black, who had successfully escaped from prison after being imprisoned for 12 years, was actually proven innocent. The murderer of the Potter family and 12 Muggles was Peter Pettigrew, who was originally thought to be dead. Black now became a hero, and he had been trying his best to protect the Potter family. As a result, the Ministry of Magic threw him into Azkaban without trial, and they did not conduct a thorough investigation of the crime scene, which led to such a huge injustice. This incident once again hit the prestige of the Ministry of Magic. Although this unjust case 13 years ago had nothing to do with Fudge himself, as the current Minister of Magic, he has still become the object of ridicule. But on the contrary, Amelia Bones, the director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement who brought Black to justice and arrested Peter, gained the favor of the Necromancers. All praised her fairness and wisdom. Because of this incident, Linji is said to have banged the table in the office several times. Blake's wanted order was lifted and he regained his legal status. He is now able to walk around freely and has now moved back to his ancestral home at 12 Grimmauld Place, London. After meeting his godfather, Harry was very happy because this was the first time that a relative was so kind to him. Black not only gave him a firebolt, but also invited him to live with him. Harry really wanted to agree to this, but Dumbledore sternly refused. The reason was that the protective magic cast on him by Harry's mother Lily Evans could only be effective in the Dursleys, because Petunia Dursley was her sister. If Harry no longer regards the Dursleys as his home, then the protective magic will be ineffective. Black was also very grateful to Yeting, because he was the one who analyzed the truth through limited evidence and finally cleared him. He readily opened the Black family's treasure house to Yeting. But Yeting only took away some books and a few interesting and ancient magic props. Blake also gave Ron an owl to compensate for Ron's loss of the mouse scabbers. Ron rejected a new mouse, and now he is suspicious of everything around him, fearing that they are an animagus that has been hidden for many years. In addition, Professor Lupin also resigned. In order to retaliate against Dumbledore for causing him to lose so much reputation, Fudge actually announced Lupin's identity as a werewolf. Soon, countless parents sent letters of complaint to Dumbledore. They could not tolerate their children's professor being a werewolf. Not everyone could understand and trust Lupin like Dumbledore. However, Lupin no longer has to live a miserable life of wandering, at least his good brother Black is willing to take him in. In addition, Harry and Ron also became famous. The death of Harry's parents and everything that happened back then began to become a hot topic again. No matter where he went, he could hear the little necromancers talking about his parents and pointing fingers at him. It made him quite sad. But Ron really enjoyed the feeling of being noticed. He made up a story about how he found out that his pet was an animagus, how he planned to capture Peter, and how he fought with him in a battle of wits and courage. In the end, Peter escaped. He became the star of the Gryffindor common room. Everyone asked him questions, and he constantly repeated the story to others. The last game of the Quidditch Cup this school year started not long after, Gryffindor vs Slytherin. Harry successfully got the Golden Snitch 10 moves before Malfoy, allowing Gryffindor to win. But their final total score was still far lower than Ravenclaw, and Wood still did not win a Quidditch Cup before leaving Hogwarts. After the game, he stood on the court and cried, "It doesn't matter, I can let you touch my trophy." After Roger learned about this, he approached Wood and said this to Wood. The angry Wood immediately chased him with a broom. In fact, Roger and Wood have been rivals for many years and also cherished friends. He probably said this to ease Wood's sadness. Before the final exam, the Ministry of Magic's trial of Buckbeak the Hippogriff came to a final conclusion, and Buckbeak was sentenced to death. Fudge announced that he would watch the execution of the death penalty with his own eyes. Now, the conflict between him and Hogwarts is getting bigger and bigger, and it has reached the point where he is openly targeting Hogwarts. Hagrid was very sad about this, but he soon burst into laughter during the execution. Because when the executioner chopped off Buckbeak's head, he discovered that he had just chopped a pumpkin in half. The Buckbeak in front of them was actually a pumpkin that had been subjected to shape-shifting. Hagrid has a good relationship with Yeting. When Yeting is not free, he will ask him to help collect materials in the Forbidden Forest. This time Yeting personally helps him. Yeting turned the pumpkins in Hagrid's field into a hippogriff, and then brought the real hippogriff to Newt Scamander, who was living in seclusion in Dorset. Since Nico Flamel's funeral, he had become friends with the old magi zoologist. Among the people he knew, Scamander was indeed the best person to deal with Buckbeak. A good home for the hippogriff. Definitely, there is good news for Yeting's experiment on the space-time gate. Before the end of the semester, he finally succeeded in opening a space-time door in the secret room. After repeated experiments and adjustments, the space-time gate has been able to remain stable after being opened, and there will no longer be emergencies such as disappearing for no reason, being disturbed by nearby space magic, or having unstable space-time coordinates. For Yeting, today's time and space gates still have many problems, such as the charging time is too long, the inability to accurately search the specified time and space coordinates, and the inability to connect to time and space without magic. But the basic function is considered complete and can be put into use. The function of today's space-time door is very simple. It allows the user to pass through the Sea of Chaos and reach another world through this door. 0. Please give me flowers. This function sounds easy, but in fact it is not simple to complete, because except for Yeting, no one has ever experienced crossing the Sea of Chaos. Only Yeting not only completed this feat by accident, but also made a mistake. The dangerous Sea of Chaos has a certain degree of adaptability. Yeting made use of his unique adaptability to make the existence of the space-time gate possible, but only by Yeting's personal operation can the space-time gate allow people to safely travel through chaos. See and reach another world. Definitely, the space-time gate has several other functions. The first function is to serve as the time and space coordinates of other time and space gates. When Yeting travels through, the time and space gate will record Yeting's current world, the spatial coordinates of the current world when traveling through, and the coordinates on the timeline of the current world when traveling through. In this case, as long as Yeting establishes the same time and space gate in other worlds, he can communicate with the time and space gate in the previous world through the coordinates, and Yeting can return to the original world and arrive at the same space and time coordinates. In other words, no matter how he travels through time, when he returns to Harry Potter, he will still arrive at the location where he started, and the time in Harry Potter's world will only pass less than 1 second. The second function is coordinate retrieval. Through this function, Yeting can find the one he wants to go to in the endless world of the Sea of Chaos. After all, who would know the coordinates of these worlds before going to other worlds? However, the coordinate retrieval can only be established after the space-time gate reads Yeting's memory. The principle is to determine the specific coordinates of the corresponding world through the information of many film and television dramas and act works that Yeting watched in his previous life. In other words, Yeting's current you can only go to the world you once knew. According to Yeting's analysis, in the world of his previous life, a considerable part of the creativity of film and television dramas and act works came from the overflow of information from various worlds in the Sea of Chaos. Some information from these worlds accidentally passed through the Sea of Chaos. After coming to their world, and being accepted by some people, he created it as his own creativity. That's why Yeting was able to use the information in these works to deduce the coordinates of the world. Unfortunately, since Yeting originally only traveled through one world, there are too few samples in this area to conduct an accurate search. Currently, we can only search for worlds that meet the conditions through relatively vague command requirements. But for Yeting, this is enough. Now, in front of him, the door of time and space has been opened. During his first time travel, his search conditions for the target world were the existence of dragons, the existence of relatively backward civilization and technology, and low level of magic power activity. After all, this is the first time to travel through time, so it's important to be cautious. If you encounter a world where technology or magic is too developed, you may be overwhelmed. Looking at the chaotic light door in front of him, Yeting finally made up his mind and stepped inside. This is how his journey to Otherworld began. Chapter 160. On this nameless planet, at the westernmost point of the known world, lies a continent called Westeros. The long and narrow continent of Westeros stretches from the polar ice caps in the north to the south, about 3,000 miles. The wall is a towering, impenetrable object that spans 300 miles and separates the northernmost region beyond the wall from the Seven Kingdoms. The population of Westeros is mainly distributed in the south, and today this land is ruled by the Seven Kingdoms similar to medieval Europe. In Westeros, each of the 4 seasons lasts for years, even decades. The current ruler of the Seven Kingdoms is Robert Baratheon. He defeated the original ruler 16 years ago in a civil war known as Robert's Rebellion and the Usurpers' War. The Qin dynasty gained the support of the Seven Kingdoms and became the king of the Seven Kingdoms. Despite Robert's victory, the last ruler of the Targaryen dynasty, the youngest son Viserys and daughter Daenerys of Mad King Aerys were still safely sent to the southern Narrow Sea by the remaining loyal ministers. On the other side, there is a continent called Essos. Essos faces the continent of Westeros across a narrow sea, extending thousands of kilometers eastward. It is larger in area than Westeros, but less densely populated. The western edge of the continent is ruled by 9 free trade city-states, while the city-state of Slavers Bay is located in the southern hinterland of the continent. The remaining inland areas, known as the Dothraki Sea, were occupied by tribal warriors known as the Dothraki. According to the original historical trajectory, in the continent of Westeros, in King's Landing, the capital of the Seven Kingdoms, an extremely ridiculous conspiracy will lead to a chaos sweeping the entire Seven Kingdoms, while in Essos, another one takes revenge on the Seven Kingdoms. The power of the world is also gradually sprouting and rising. Unfortunately, this Game of Thrones was finally disrupted by a butterfly from outside the world. The place where the butterfly's wings first fluttered was on the grassland known as the Dothraki Sea. On the endless Dothraki Sea, a grand open-air wedding banquet was being held. The wedding banquet started at dawn and lasted until dark, filled with endless gluttony and conflicts and fighting. This group of Dothraki men and women were all bare-chested, wearing painted leather vests, horsehair leggings, and bronze sashes around their waists. Male warriors greased their long braids with animal fat from the oil pits to make them shiny black. They feasted on roasted horse meat with honey and pepper, drank fermented mare's milk and Illyrio's fine wine, and laughed with each other across the campfire. And on a mound in the sea of people, sat the protagonists of this wedding banquet. Sitting among them was the man of the wedding, Khal Drogo, tribal leader, Dothraki. He leads the largest Kaleza, nomadic tribe, Dothraki language, tribe in the Dothraki Sea. He has more than 40,000 warriors under his command and is invincible in every battle. He has bronze skin, black eyes and hair, and is a tall man with a graceful figure. Drogo has a long beard and has his hair braided. The braids were long enough to hang down to his thighs, and were tied with small bells. His braid has never been cut, indicating that Drogo never loses a battle. Sitting next to Drogo is a petite and extremely beautiful girl. She has silver gold hair and purple eyes. This is a standard Valyrian appearance that is not found in Westeros and Essos. Several people are like her, because she is Daenerys Targaryen, the last descendant of the Targaryen dynasty, the previous dynasty of Westeros, and the youngest daughter of the Mad King. The Targaryens are nobles from Valyria, and only they have such characteristics. The Valyrian people have a long tradition of taming dragons, and their nobles are called dragon kings. However, in the end Valyria suffered an unprecedented doomsday, and only the Targaryen family fled to West Lo, and rode a dragon to conquer this place. In the Seven Kingdoms, the Targaryen family is known as the blood of the true dragon. Now, Daenerys is wearing a wedding dress, timid and helpless. Her brother Viserys Targaryen conspired with Governor Illyrio Mopatis of the free city of Pentos to marry her to Khal Drogo in exchange for a Dothraki army attacking West Lo, after defeating the Seven Kingdoms, placed Viserys on the throne and restored the rule of the Targaryen dynasty. However, Daenerys did not want this at all. She was afraid of Drogo and did not want to marry this barbarian at all. However, out of fear of her brother since she was a child, she finally agreed to this require. Viserys sat directly below her, wearing a new black woolen sweater with a scarlet dragon embroidered on the chest. Illyrio and Viserys' new squire, Ser Jorah, sat next to him. However, being in this vast sea of people, next to her only relative, Daenerys only felt lonely as never before. Her brother asked her to smile, so she tried to keep smiling until her face muscles ached and tears flowed down her face. She tried her best to hide her tears, because she knew all too well how angry Viserys would be if he saw it, and she was even more afraid of Khal Drogo's reaction. She could only wear a wedding dress, hold a glass of wine mixed with honey, and talk to herself quietly without moving. I am the heir of the dragon, she told herself. I am Daenerys Stormborn, the princess of Dragonstone, with the blood of Aegon the Conqueror flowing in my body. The sun had just moved a quarter of the way up the zenith when the violent factors and strange values in the Dothraki blood began to take effect. The warriors began to walk into the circle of dancers, grabbed the dancers' arms with their hands, and pressed he fell to the ground and got up on the spot like a stallion and a mare. Sometimes two men caught the same woman, and in the blink of an eye, two arak scimitars were unsheathed. This is a weapon that is half sword and half scythe, with a long and sharp blade. The two warriors immediately started a death sword dance, going around in circles, killing each other, jumping back and forth. The blades were flowing, and they were shouting and cursing. No one intervened. According to the words of the Dothraki, any Dothraki wedding that does not result in at least 3 lives is considered a failure. There were more and more battles and deaths, and the banquet gradually reached its climax, but the fear in Dany's heart only increased. In the end, all she could do was to control herself and not scream. She was afraid that these behaviors were weird and barbaric, like the Dothraki wearing human skin. She was afraid that she would not live up to her brother's expectations, and she didn't know what he would do to her. But what scared her the most was that night, her brother what he would do to her under the stars after handing her over to the strange giant sitting next to her drinking with a face as expressionless as cruel as a bronze mask. I am the descendant of the true dragon, she said to herself again. Finally, as the sun set, Khal Drogo clapped his hands, and all the drumming, shouting, and feasting ceased. Drogo stood up, then helped Dany to her feet. The ceremony of giving away bridal gifts began. But she knew very well that when the gift-giving ceremony was over and the sun went down, she would be truly married. Dany tried to put the thought away, but in vain. She could only tighten her body and try everything not to tremble. Her brother Viserys gave her 3 maids. Dany knew that he didn't spend half a penny at all. It must have come from Illyrio's pocket. Among them, Iri and Jiki were Dothraki with almond eyes and dark skin. Doria is a girl with blonde hair and blue eyes from Lys. Good sister, these are not ordinary slaves, her brother told her when they were brought to her one by one. Illyrio and I carefully selected them for you. Illy will teach you to ride a horse, Ji will teach you the Dothraki language, and Doria will teach you Kung Fu. He smiled lightly. She is an expert in this field, Illyrio, and I can guarantee that. Governor Illyrio ordered softly, and 4 stout slaves immediately moved forward quickly carrying a cedar box decorated with bronze. After opening it, she found that it was filled with the finest velvet and brocade produced by the free trade city, and there were 3 huge eggs lying on it. Dany almost lost her breath. This was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Each of the 3 eggs had a different appearance. The patterns on them were so rich that she thought they were covered with eggs, and she had to use both hands to hold one. She picked it up carefully, thinking it was made of fine ceramics, colored glazes or glass, but she didn't expect it to be much heavier than that, as if it was made of hard stone. The surface of the eggshell was covered with tiny scales. As she turned them around with her fingers, they reflected the setting sun and gave off a metallic luster. One of them is dark green, with various bronze spots revealed as Dany turns the angle. The other is light milky white, with golden stripes. The last one is black, like the midnight sun, but with vibrant dark red waves and whirlpools. What is this? She asked softly, her mouth full of surprise. This is a dragon egg from the Shadowland east of Asai. Governor Illyrio said, it has been fossilized for thousands of years, but it is still beautiful and beautiful. I will treasure them forever. The gift-giving ceremony was still going on. Suddenly, a gust of strange wind struck, throwing the crowd into chaos. The flags rustled in the wind, and the bonfires and torches were extinguished one after another with the strange wind. The wind became stronger and stronger, and the sound of flapping wings came constantly. Khal Drogo had seen the largest flying eagle on the Dothraki Sea, but none of them could make such a loud noise when flapping their wings. A shadow of huge amounts passed over everyone's heads. The noise and shouts died away, and everyone's eyes turned to the sky. A majestic and elegant figure appeared in front of them. The air became as thick as glue, a kind of fear filled people's souls. Even the most powerful Khal Drogo was no exception. He and his blood riders were frozen on the spot. Dragon, it's a dragon. I don't know who it was that screamed in terror in this weird silence. Above all of them, a 5.4 real dragon flew over, huge amounts of its body blocking the sun. Its scales sparkled like diamonds, and its wings spread 20 feet from tip to base. More than 100 years have passed, has the real dragon appeared again? Someone in the crowd screamed happily, it was Westeros. Behold, this is destiny, he shouted arrogantly to the people around him. When I am about to rule Westeros, even the dragon that has disappeared for 100 years appears again and serves me. I am destined to he is the king of the 7 kingdoms. Not only Illyrio and Yora, but even the way Drogo looked at him changed. Before this, no one looked down upon him. Khal Drogo thought he was pushy and ambitious, while Illyrio had always regarded him as a political bargaining chip. The appearance of dragon changed everyone's views, and they had to reconsider, are the Targaryens really their destiny? However, fate did not favor him. Dragon opened its mouth and let out an astonishing dragon roar. Then, the scorching flames swallowed up Viserys and everyone around him, Governor Illyrio, Khal Drogo, Khal's blood riders, Dan Nellis, even 3 dragon eggs were swallowed up by endless flames. In full view of all the Dothraki, their Khal and all their leaders perished in the sea of fire. Chapter 161. The dragon flames that consumed everything created huge amounts of disaster in the center of Kala Sa. The sea of fire was like a roaring giant beast, covering up the weak screams, spitting out long tongues of fire, licking the belly of the night sky. The smoke became thicker and thicker, and the Dothraki coughed and retreated. The giant orange flames stirred up the strong winds of hell, blowing the nearby flags, and the glowing embers rose from the smoke and drifted towards the endless night, like hundreds of newborn fireflies. The flames rose high, waving their huge and fiery red wings, forcing the Dothraki to retreat step by step. Dothraki who were close to the sea of fire could even smell the smell of human flesh being cooked, which was no different from the smell of horse meat roasting on a campfire. Kala, the largest Kala on the Dothraki sea, became leaderless in the blink of an eye. All the Cass, leaders of Cass, the small tribe under Kala, and some Cass from other small Kala came to visit. Odo went to offer Drogo a wedding gift, and was then thrown into the pot along with Drogo. However, these Dothraki did not cause any changes because the dragon was always hovering above them. Under the huge pressure of dragons POWER04 and the deterrence of the destructive dragon flames, they all knelt down on the ground tremblingly. The originally brave and bloodthirsty nomads were now trembling like small animals, not daring to. He raised his head and looked directly at the terrifying dragon, and could only glance at it furtively. Occasionally, 1 or 2 Dothraki couldn't bear the pressure and screamed and tried to escape, but they would be chased by dragon one by one, and then buried in the dragon's fire, turning into a charred corpse, making others even more afraid. Act rashly. Soon, the sea of fire in the center gradually disappeared, and the original grassland had become a scorched earth with black smoke. The once powerful cows, and the most powerful Khal Drogo on the Dothraki sea had become there were charred corpses one after another, and the jewelry they once wore and the weapons in their hands were now turned into red molten iron. Looking at this purgatory scene, Baron Yora let out a scream. Since he was only a servant of Viserys, he was not allowed to approach Khal Drogo during the gift-giving ceremony. Instead, after the gift-giving ceremony, he came to a place a little further away with Daenerys' 3 new maids. This allowed them to survive. His new master, Viserys, whom he had stayed with for only a day, became part of this inferno. Yora was able to recognize that one of the tall, lanky bodies was that of Viserys Targaryen, because of all the people present. The Slarks are all strong men, even Governor Illyrio is a fat man. It's all lies, he murmured painfully, the true dragon bloodline and the blood and fire originate from the same source are all lies. Yora was originally the Lord of House Mormont and the Duke of Bear Island. He spent all his money and became deeply in debt in order to give his second wife luxuries. In order to repay the debt, Yora violated the laws of the 7 kingdoms and sold the poachers to the Tyrosh as slaves. After the incident, he was sentenced to death by his lord, Ed Stark, the guardian of the north of the 7 kingdoms. In order to survive, he fled to Braavos, the most powerful city in the Free City State, and became a hedge knight, but his wife became someone else's mistress because he was penniless. Disappointed, Yora came to the Dothraki Sea, met Viserys by chance, and became Viserys' attendant because of his Dothraki attributes. He originally expected to follow Viserys and at least have a chance to take back everything he had, but who knew that only one day later, Viserys would become a scorched earth. Just as he was lamenting his fate, a figure slowly stood up in the scorched earth. It turned out that there were still people who survived in this purgatory. That's Daenerys. All around her were black charcoal, glowing embers, and the charred bones of the men. She was naked, but covered with soot and shrouded in white smoke, making it impossible to see her. Her beautiful hair was also burned away, but she herself was safe and sound. Beside her, 3 dragon eggs of different colors were full of cracks, and something seemed to be about to break out of the shell. Is this the blood of the legendary true dragon that is immune to high temperatures and flames? Even dragon fire cannot hurt her at all, and dragon eggs. Yora, as if he had seen a miracle and hope, he stood up tremblingly and wanted to walk into the scorched earth, but the other person, no, the dragon moved faster than him. Before Yora could see Daenerys' body clearly, a terrible hot wind knocked him to the ground with a loud flapping of wings. When he struggled to get up, he only saw Dragon falling slowly to the ground, right behind Daenerys. Dragon let out an earth-shattering roar, spread its wings, and then surrounded Daenerys. No! Yora shouted in despair. He felt that this dragon was going to eat Daenerys and eat his last hope. However, Dragon did not do this, and his body changed unexpectedly. In full view of Yora and the Dothraki, Dragon's body slowly became smaller, and then he stood upright. The long and elegant dragon head and neck gradually shortened and then turned into a handsome and human face. The person in front of him was probably a teenager in his teens, with black hair and obsidian eyes. Yora could swear that he had met countless nobles in the 7 kingdoms, but even Rhaegar and Kai, the eldest sons of the Mad King, the second son of Duke Tywin Lannister, Lord of Rock City, the Kingsguard, Jaime Lannister, and Sir Loras Tyrell, known as the Knight of Flowers, these nobles who are famous for their handsomeness, are far superior in appearance. Not as good as the person in front of me. The dragon's claws gradually shortened and disappeared, replaced by a pair of slender and powerful hands and feet, and the scales gradually disappeared, turning into a gorgeous black cloak and a black suit of a style he had never seen before. After the wings retracted to the shoulders, the long tail also shortened and disappeared. In this way, a terrifying dragon transformed into a handsome human being in front of everyone. 7 gods! Yora sighed in surprise, how is this possible? However, the facts are right in front of them. The boy who transformed into a dragon is Yeting, who came to the world of Song of Ice and Fire for a while. He walked up to the naked Daenerys, took off his cloak before the smoke cleared, then put it on her body, and then looked at the naked beauty in front of him. The girl in front of him was only 13 years old, her violet eyes were full of confusion. He had been confused by the rapidly changing situation of 003. First he had to face a barbarian who was much older than him, and then Dragon suddenly appeared again. Burn her, her brother, the stranger he was about to marry, all on fire. She originally thought she would die, but unexpectedly the flames could not harm her at all, and could only wrap around her body and dance around her like her robe. Then, the flames died down and the dragon landed in front of her. Just when she thought she was going to be Dragon's food, Dragon turned into a young man slightly older than herself. When this young man came to her, she originally thought she would feel scared because he was a dragon and had killed so many people. But in fact, she felt no fear at all, only an inexplicable feeling of closeness, which prompted her to stay where she was, neither running away in fear nor feeling ashamed of being exposed. She watched the boy wrap his naked self in his cloak and looked into her eyes seriously. Then he spoke, using the common language of Westeros with no discernible accent, and his voice was very pleasant. Finally, I meet you, he began, the future Dothraki, the destined ruler of Westeros, the Dragon Queen, the Princess of Dragonstone, Daenerys Stormborn Targaryen. My name is Ting Yet. This is my first time meeting you. Please give me some advice. Although I came here at midnight, I can barely count yesterday's 5th update, and today I will continue my 4th update. Chapter 162. The thick smoke on the Dothraki Sea has gradually dissipated, and the heat wave on the scorched earth has slowly subsided. However, the tens of thousands of Dothraki warriors still knelt on the ground, and no one dared to act rashly. They were afraid of the young man in the scorched earth, because he was transformed from a dragon. This dragon had swallowed up their Ka with dragon flames, turned all the bandits into charcoal, and killed all the enemies. Someone who dares to escape. These warriors on the grassland can only kneel on their knees and wait for their fate. However, this young man who was transformed into a dragon paid no attention to this group of warriors who could sweep the entire Dothraki Sea. His attention was completely focused on the girl in front of him. For Daenerys, this is a frightening but very new experience. In the past, she was a timid and unconfident little girl. She only lived in exile and relied heavily on her brother Viserys, who was a cruel person with rough language, prone to anger and abuse of violence. She has always followed the crowd, always been an accessory of others, and has not been truly taken seriously. But even so, she still has a belief in her heart that she is the descendant of the true dragon, with the blood of Aegon the Conqueror flowing in her body, and she will one day return to Westeros and sit on the Iron Throne. Now, she is surrounded by dragon flames, including her brother who considers himself a true dragon, the most powerful Dothraki Khal Drogo, and Illyrio, who is extremely wealthy and has always used her as a political bargaining chip. All the governors were buried in dragon flames, but she was the only one who escaped unscathed. But now, the terrifying dragon transformed into a handsome boy, right in front of her, staring at her. She had never felt the coming of fate so deeply as she did today. It feels like I have been chosen by some great being. Daenerys gathered her courage, raised her head, and stared at the man in front of her as he stared at her. Then, she heard the greeting and the title from the man's mouth. The future Dothraki sea nymph Cleo is the destined ruler of Westeros and the Dragon Queen. Is this his expectation for me? Or is it the future given to me by God? In any case, Yeting's greetings in Westeros calmed her down a little, and even gave her an inexplicable feeling of warmth, a tenderness that she didn't expect to find in this dragon. Daenerys tightened the cloak around her body with her hands, as if this was the only thing that could give her a hint of courage. Hello, yet. She stammered, but after the words came out, a wave of determination came to her heart, prompting her to speak completely. You are a messenger sent by the gods, right? Daenerys' question almost made Yeting laugh. He shook his head and denied it with some contempt. I am not a messenger of gods, and I will never be. I am a human and a dragon, and I only represent myself. I came for my destiny, and the blood of the dragon guided me to come to you. Are you here for your destiny? These words made her a little uneasy. Is it my destiny? It is your destiny, and it is also the destiny of this world. Yeting looked at her purple eyes meaningfully, and said solemnly, your destiny will be connected with this world, not only this Dothraki sea, but also freedom. City-states, the entire Essos, even the Seven Kingdoms, and the entire Westeros. Your destiny will be the destiny of this world, you will become the master of mankind, Lord of the Dragons, you will sit on the Iron Throne, the throne of the King of the Seven Kingdoms, and you will be crowned king. Me. Yes. Yeting nodded, this is the fate I promised you, and it is also the future you are going to. Daenerys couldn't believe it. Just half an hour ago, she was used as a prop to marry a barbarian leader, but now someone has promised unprecedented power and status in front of her. But a miracle just came to her. The dragon appeared again after 100 years, and the boy transformed from the dragon, which made her have to believe that this was her future destiny. Do you still remember your bloodline and your identity? Yeting reminded lightly. Yes. Daenerys suddenly woke up, and fear and timidity immediately left her. 10 prides originating from the depths of her blood caused her to speak in an unprecedented tone. I am the heir of the true dragon. I am Daenerys Stormborn, the princess of Dragonstone. I have the blood of Aegon the Conqueror flowing in my body. Yes, that's it. Yeting nodded with satisfaction, you have indeed inherited the blood of the dragon and are a girl with potential. From this point of view, my choice is not wrong. Seeing his satisfied expression, Daenerys was also a little happy, so she smiled at him. She hopes that her smile can also satisfy the other person, because she knows that she is beautiful. Governor Illyrio once said that as long as she smiles, all kinds of iron and stone will soften in front of her. However, she then realized that she was not the carefully dressed bride in a wedding dress, but an ugly girl who had survived the dragon's flames, covered in soot and charcoal, and had no hair. So she tightened her cloak tightly and lowered her face in shame. Yeting discovered this, he curled his lips in a funny way and comforted himself. Girl, you don't have to be ashamed of your appearance at this moment. He touched Dany's cheek and wiped away some black ashes for her. Fire and ashes never make you ugly, they are your rebirth in the flames. Your testimony is a symbol of your status as the unburnt one. And, he added, taking out a delicate little stick from one of his pockets, the stick gave Dany a mysterious feeling, and she felt a magical power on it touching her body. How could I let my dragon queen meet her first subjects in this form? Dany watched him tap her forehead with a wooden stick, and a magical change immediately happened to her. She felt as if a breeze blew over her from head to toe, and then she felt a coolness and warmth. Refreshingly, she found that her whole body was clean, as if she had experienced the hot bath with sesame oil before the wedding again. This change surprised her. She thought of the legendary wizards of Quills or the Shadowbinders of the Land of Shadows. It was said that they had the power of magic, which made Yejian even more mysterious in her eyes. However, this was not the end yet. She felt her scalp itching, but her demeanor as a princess made her resist stroking her now bald head. However, she suddenly felt that her hair began to grow. The beautiful silver-gold hair gradually grew longer and longer like wildly growing grass, gradually covering her ears and touching her shoulders, until it hung down to her waist. Not only her hair, but also the hair on other parts of her body, such as her eyebrows, also returned to their original appearance. This made her blush a little. Immediately afterwards, she felt a layer of comfortable and soft fabric begin to wrap around her naked body. The deep purple and white fabric formed an exquisite dress on her body, and finally her white skin was no longer exposed to the air. Finally, Yeting took out a gorgeous and small crown. The crown was made of gold wire with dragon-shaped patterns on it, and each dragon's eyes were inlaid with red gems. In the center of the crown, there is a blood-red gem the size of a thumb. Danny could swear that he traveled with his brother to the 9 free trade cities and saw countless governors who were extravagant and full of jewels, but he never knew greater or more beautiful gem than this was seen among them. This is the dragon blood crown. Yeting smiled slightly, put it gently on Danny's head, and introduced, I used my own blood to cast magic on it, Lise, and it became a real dragon. When the queen wears it, it can give the wearer the majesty of a dragon. Finally, Yeting finished dressing her up. He took 2 steps back, looked her up and down, and showed a surprised expression. What kind of beauty is she? Although Danny is petite, she has a delicate and beautiful appearance. Her silver gold hair is as bright as molten silver, and her deep purple silk robe brings out her violet eyes. The gorgeous and elegant crown fully expresses her princess side. At the moment, she possesses a noble, elegant, and strong temperament, and is no longer timid and submissive. This is the Dragon Queen in my mind. Yeting praised, it's time for your first subjects to take a good look at their future ruler. The Ice and Fire scroll is a bit difficult to write, mainly because the scenes in the original work are relatively large and the narrative style is more epic. My writing style may not be good enough to imitate, so I wrote it more slowly, but I still have the best direction in the 4th update. Please also ask for flowers, comments, and subscriptions. I will write this volume carefully. It doesn't matter if you haven't watched Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones. It won't be incomprehensible. Chapter 163. In most places west of Westeros and Valyria, magic is considered a power of legend. Maesters in the Citadel, the center of Westeros scholars, may learn about magic and obtain chains of Valyrian steel, but they generally believe that after the doom of Valyria, magic has ceased to exist, as there was no record of successful magic being cast in Westeros after that. In the continent of Essos, although it is widely said that the wizards of Qarth possess huge amounts of power, they have done little in recent times. In this world, magic may have declined and become a true legend. But now, in this Dothraki Sea, magic once again appears in people's eyes. The reappearance of the dragon after 100 years and the use of legendary magic officially marked the coming of a new era. Although the Dothraki people believed in the horse god and the existence of witches and prophet, they never thought that mysterious magic would be revealed before their eyes. Under the gaze of everyone, a tall stone platform slowly rose from the scorched earth. The stone platform was not built by slaves carrying stones or carved by craftsmen, but appeared out of thin air on the ground. In front of you. The stone platform is several meters high, enough to be seen from a distance by hundreds of thousands of people in Kala SA. There are 27 steps on the stone platform, which are decorated with dragon-shaped patterns. The Dothraki people could see 2 people standing on the stone platform. One of them was a young man transformed by dragon, and the other 007 was a survivor of the dragon's fire and was originally going to be their Khaleesi, Kul's wife, Dothraki, woman. This magical scene made the Dothraki people even more admired. They carefully looked up at the 2 people on the stone platform with their peripheral vision, and anxiously awaited their fate. Then, the young man spoke, speaking in Dothraki, and the loud voice was enough for everyone within a few miles to hear clearly. People of the horse god. Warriors of the Dothraki Sea. Everyone's attention was attracted to him. They had never thought that a person in the form of a dragon could speak Dothraki so fluently. But they immediately lowered their heads respectfully and waited for his treatment of them. I am the god above gods, the messenger of the dragon god, and the incarnation of the dragon god on earth, he said loudly in a solemn tone. The dragon god is the supreme god and the omniscient and omnipotent creator of the universe. It has light, life, and creative virtue are also the agents of heaven, order, and truth. Any belief in the world, any false god, is just the incarnation of the dragon god, including the horse god you believe in. When Yeting said the last words, the scene was in an uproar. Many Dothraki people reacted fiercely to Yeting's words, but most people just listened and accepted it silently. After all, how can those ignorant religions that are maintained only through education, rituals, and mystery compare with the miracles before our eyes? However, Yeting ignored the Dothraki people's reactions and just continued to declare solemnly. In the beginning, the dragon god used his supreme power to create this world. It was divided into 4 continents and divided by endless oceans. Later, when the dragon god saw that the earth was very desolate, he said that the earth would give birth to living creatures, and each of them would follow its own direction. Their kind. The firstborn is a dragon, the messenger of the dragon god, the secondborn is a human, the primate of all things, the lastborn is livestock, insects, and beasts. They each follow their own kind and perform their duties, forming a today's world. After this, the dragon god left this world and allowed it to develop on its own. However, as time passed, the creatures on the earth did not develop as the dragon god imagined. The dragons fell. They indulged in glitz and enjoyment. Eventually they lost their spirituality and became beasts. And people gradually forgot. In order to understand the greatness of the dragon god, they came to all parts of the world, forgot the language of the dragon god, made up their own languages, and worshipped their own idols. More than 100 years ago, the last dragon disappeared from this world. You disappeared at the same time, along with the magic power given to this world by the dragon god. But now, the dragon god is about to return, and his messenger is here to descend on this world. But he saw sadly that human beings have forgotten the name of the dragon god and the holy dragon god. They no longer worship him or believe in him. Human beings have lost their salvation and have fallen into endless disputes, melees, killings and desires. Minister. But God loves the world, and the dragon god decided to give mankind another redemption. He gave me authority. He asked me to rebuild his faith and his country on the ground. He wants the world to stop fighting, and he wants all countries to be unified again. He to purify the sins of the world and restore peace and tranquility to this land. The Dothraki clan roams the Dothraki Sea, making a living by nomadic plundering, causing wanton killing and chaos, and their sins are serious. Now the dragon god wants to punish them with divine fire, but God pities the world's ignorance and only sends down divine punishment. Judge their leaders, but spare their people, I ask you, warriors of the Dothraki, whether you know, your sins. Facing Yeting's fierce questioning, most of the Dothraki fell to the ground more humbly and fearfully, claiming to be guilty, but a sudden shout came from the crowd. Evil infidel, stop lying. The Dothraki around him were in an uproar, and they all wanted to stay away from this loyal warrior. However, some people responded immediately. Most of them were the most devout believers of Horse God or the most loyal warriors of Drogo. Although they dared not speak out because of Yeting's terror before, they heard Yeting deny them after believing in their leader and calling their leader a sinner, they still came out excitedly. Blasphemous devil! Shut up! The sinner who killed Khal Drogo, you will definitely pay the price. Such voices of resistance arose one after another. Yeting's face darkened, but he almost didn't laugh out loud in his heart. He was about to find a few rebels to scare the monkeys and show off his magic power again. So he suddenly raised his hand and pointed, and the grass around the first resistor, which was no more than human ankles, immediately grew wildly. The grass instantly became a life-threatening rope, binding the resistor tightly and letting him go. He struggled continuously but could not escape, and was eventually strangled to death on the spot. Immediately afterwards, crazy weeds and vines sprouted under the feet of all the resistors, binding them all until they were suffocated. This horrific scene frightened the Dothraki people. They shook their heads and loudly admitted their guilt, fearing that they would suffer the same fate. Yeting nodded and said sternly, "Those who resist the dragon god and blaspheme the dragon god will be punished by God. But you sinners are not unpardonable. The dragon god is willing to give you a chance to atone your sins." As soon as these words came out, they immediately aroused a look of hope. The dragon god will establish a church among you and spread the dragon god's faith, and you will become the dragon god's sharp blade, defeat all pagans for him, spread the dragon god's faith to the entire world, and at the same time assist the dragon god to unify all nations. Kingdom, establishing his kingdom of God on earth. When the Dothraki heard this, they stood up one after another, shouted Dragon God is on top and swore their faith in the Dragon God. Then, Yeting turned to Daenerys and announced loudly, the descendant of the true dragon, the princess of Dragonstone Island, the unburnt, the stormborn Daenerys Targaryen, with the blood of the true dragon, and she was unscathed by the dragon's flames and successfully passed the Dragon God's test. She will be the king of men and dragons destined by the Dragon God, the Dragon God's agent on earth, and shepherd his lambs for the Dragon God. The dragon will obey her. The call of the Lord, the fire will become her power, she will become the only female Khal on the steppe, the CEO owner of the free trade cities, the queen of the Andals, Draenor, and the first men, the ruler of the seven kingdoms, and the ruler of the entire realm. Guard. And you will become her first subjects, become her arrows, her blades, and be loyal to her under the witness of the Dragon God. Nearest to the stone platform, Iago was the first to kneel down again and shouted Her Majesty Queen Daenerys. After him, her maids also came, followed by other Dothraki, men, women, old and young, all shouting Her Majesty Queen Daenerys. Daenerys was pushed to the stage by Yeting. She glanced around in panic, but she only had to look at their eyes to know that they had surrendered to her. Only then did she realize that she had become a queen. Chapter 164. The last ray of sunset disappeared at the end of the high wall of Pentos, and the sky was completely dark. The Dothraki people returned to their camp. They built walls and horses in the direction of Pentos. The warriors were sorting and polishing their weapons in preparation for tomorrow's battle. The women and children organized bundles of arrows. Everyone performs their duties, preparing for the battle to capture Pentos tomorrow. Pentos is one of the 9 free trade city-states. It is located in the west of the Essos continent, on the edge of the Narrow Sea, and is far away from the Seven Kingdoms. It is the free trade city-state closest to King's Landing. The wedding banquet of Drogo and Daenerys was held on the outskirts of Pentos, and Illyrio himself was one of the governors of Pentos. When Drogo's Kalasha arrived, other governors and citizens were worried about the defense of Pentos and doubled the city's garrison. After witnessing the arrival of Dragon, the city was immediately surrounded by fear. A large number of citizens fled the city overnight, while the governor and soldiers constantly filled water tanks in the city and carried huge amounts of ballista from the warehouse to prevent Dragon from attacking the city. At the moment, in Yeting's tent, he was half lying on a chair, reading a book introducing the major nobles of Westeros, while Daenerys sat carefully next to him. Really look at his face. It was indeed a handsome face. Dany had never seen a more handsome man. Although he was just a young man, his wisdom and calm temperament deeply attracted her, and she gradually became fascinated by him, almost forgetting the purpose of coming here. Finally, the young man put down his book and looked at her. Why did you come to my place if you don't stay in your own tent to sleep? He suddenly asked, his tone soft, without any trace of the coldness of killing people during the day or the solemnity of loud declarations. Hearing his words, Daenerys immediately realized what she was here to do. She blushed, but she still mustered up the courage to ask Yeting, are you really the messenger of the Dragon God? Dragon God, are you really? Did you choose me to become the queen of the Seven Kingdoms? Just after asking this question, she felt that saying this might seem disrespectful to the Dragon God, so she shrank her neck timidly. Seeing her cute performance, Yeting couldn't help but laugh out loud. He calmed down and replied, if anyone outside comes to ask this question, I will tell him righteously that I am the messenger of the Dragon God, and punished him for the crime of disrespect. But if it were you, I would answer that the Dragon God and all that were just lies made up by me. Lie? The Dragon God, is it a lie? Daenerys covered her mouth in surprise. She didn't expect that the person in front of her would actually tell such a big lie and deceive hundreds of thousands of people. It's definitely fake. Yeting looked like he was not ashamed but proud. If you want to rule the ignorant people, the best way is to start with faith, especially since I can actually cast down my god in front of them. At the time of the miracle, with the name of the Dragon God, we can easily control these forces, and unite our people in the future unification war, making the enemy feel fearful and uneasy. After all, the true God is on our side. Yeting's words made her feel a little relieved. After thinking about it carefully, she found that for such a guy who could transform from a dragon into a human and cast so many large-scale magics, forging miracles and establishing power through religion was indeed a challenge. Good idea. However, since the Dragon God does not exist, her problem is even greater. So, what about me? In other words, is my destiny to become the king of the Seven Kingdoms also false? Seeing the girl's worried expression, Yeting smiled gently, grabbed her trembling hand, and asked, what? Don't you believe that I can take you back to the Seven Kingdoms and push you to the Iron Throne? No, that's not the case. Dany, whose hands were held, seemed to gain courage from the other's warm hands, and said loudly, I definitely believe you have this ability. You are so powerful and so wise, but what about me? I am just a princess who lost her country. I have been wandering around the free trade city with my brother. I have never learned any martial arts, I don't know any military strategies, and I don't know how to govern a country. I can take on the responsibility of helping. Is it your mission to rule the Seven Kingdoms? Yes, although in the original book, Daenerys gradually grew into a qualified ruler and an attractive leader after experiencing the pain of losing her brother, husband, and son, but now, she was just a little girl who was sent for marriage, so it was normal for her to feel so anxious. So, Yeting held her face with his hands, looked at her violet eyes, and said seriously. You are the descendant of the true dragon, the descendant of the conqueror Aegon, and the legal heir to the Iron Throne. You are a smart and strong girl. Although you don't understand anything now, you can still learn, right? Next in the coming days, I will teach you my wisdom, let you know how to control others, how to build and rule a country. Return to King's Landing, sit on the Iron Throne, and restore the glory of the Targaryen family, isn't it you? Has it always been a dream? Dany looked at Yeting intently. His black eyes, the heat of his palms and his words gave her strength. She began to convince herself that she could become a qualified queen. At least, she had to believe in the one who believed. The man in front of her. I understand, she finally nodded, and said to Yeting with the determination she had never had before, in the name of Targaryen, I swear that I will become a qualified queen and return to King's Landing, ascend the Iron Throne and restore the glory of the Targaryen family. I will definitely unify this country for you and rule it well. Not for me, but for yourself. Yeting added, but he was still very satisfied with Dany's courage and ability. From this reaction, it seemed that she was indeed a born king. 0, please give me flowers 00 well, it's for myself. Daenerys smiled softly, and her inner restraint eased a lot. Then she asked curiously, what about you? What can you gain in this process? Yeting pondered for a moment and replied, knowledge and dragon's blood. Then he explained, I am a magician, seeking the power to analyze the world from knowledge. There are many interesting magics in this world, such as the sacrifices and shadows of Arhillar, the god of light and fire, a belief. The binders have the magic to manipulate fire and shadow, the skin changers have the magic to invade the consciousness of animals, the priests and the White Walkers have the magic to resurrect and control the undead, and the children of the forest in the past even had magic powerful enough to break the continent. Although they have all been lost now, with my appearance and the return of the dragon, these magics will become glorious again. 0. In addition, I gave myself the ability to transform into a dragon through magic, but this magic is too dangerous and difficult to control. I hope that through your true dragon blood and the blood of other dragons, I can improve this magic so that others can also gain the power to transform into a dragon. After listening to Yeting's words, Dany nodded in understanding. She had only heard about magic, but this did not prevent her from treating Yeting as a scholar in the city, but Yeting was much more powerful than them. There are many, and the ambition is much greater. When all of Dany's questions were answered, the conversation stopped. She became quiet again, just sitting next to Yeting and looking at him steadily. After a while, Yeting put down the book again, turned to Daenerys, and reminded her, it's late at night. Come to your tent soon. There will be a war tomorrow. However, Daenerys rejected him. No, she said, looking seriously into his eyes. This was the first time she refused his request, and it took her a lot of effort to muster the courage. Yeting looked at her strangely. In front of Yeting, she just unbuttoned her robe, and the purple robe and white robe immediately fell to the ground. Her slim figure was displayed before his eyes. Yeting opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Dany continued. She came to Yeting's side and touched his restraints little by little. Yeting resisted a little, but Dany grabbed his hand and continued, gently but firmly. The night wind was cold as ice water, blowing on the girl's skin, making her shiver and causing goosebumps to appear on her hands and feet. Daenerys was afraid of what would happen next, but when she thought of everything today, she still mustered up her last courage and stepped forward. As the saying goes, every step of the way is fragrant and gold is flying on thin shoes, and the fan is covering the coral lips. It has been said that when you are picking mulberry trees, you will be on the roadside. If you are able to undress, you will be by the river. Chapter 165. Early the next morning, when the sky was still bright, Yeting woke up. This was the first time that he woke up with a girl by his side, and it was also the first time that he observed a girl's sleeping posture from such a close distance. Daenerys's long silver-gold hair was scattered on the pillow, her pink nose was undulating slightly, and she was making a pleasant breathing sound. The girl's lips were slightly parted and her eyes were closed a little tight. The tears in the corners of her eyes and the pink color on her cheeks reflected the intensity of the battle last night. This is the first time for a girl, and the same is true for a boy, but after all, the dragon clan cannot afford to be hurt. He just stared at Dany's sleeping face, feeling a little inexplicably warm. After an unknown amount of time, her long eyelashes began to tremble. Daenerys wakes up. She sat up in a daze, and the quilt slipped naturally, revealing some petite scenery. Yeting didn't dodge, he just looked at her with a smile. Finally, Daenerys woke up completely. She immediately noticed her situation and the man beside her, so she hurriedly pulled up the quilt. Perhaps the force was a little too strong and it involved the injury from last night. Dany frowned in pain. Yeting understood immediately and snapped his fingers. Then, Dany felt that her pain completely disappeared. "Can your magic still be used here?" she asked subconsciously, and then she realized that these words made the atmosphere a little awkward. So she stood up silently, dressed herself and the man up like a newlywed wife, and then went out to wash up. After a while, she returned to the tent, and one of her maids brought an exquisite breakfast behind her. Dany noticed that Yeting's sheets had been changed, which made her blush again. The two of them ate in silence throughout breakfast. It wasn't until the maid took away the tableware for a while that Yeting took the initiative to break the awkward atmosphere. "Why?" he asked briefly, his tone pretending to be relaxed, as if he was asking what the weather was like today, but Dany understood what he meant immediately. "This is repayment and an agreement," she whispered in a weak tone. "I am very grateful for everything you have done for me. Really, no one has ever valued me as much as you have and believed in me. I have always they are other people's tools and accessories, but you gave me the meaning of being a human being and a descendant of the dragon. Although you killed my brother, I am still very grateful to you. Today, I have nothing. Everything I have is given by you. I have nothing to give you, and I have nothing to guarantee you. I can only. But please don't worry, I will try my best. Let myself fall in love with you. In front of you, I am just a little girl who knows nothing. I don't know if you have a family, a wife and children, but I will not be a burden to you, nor will I can't ask for more, I just hope you can give me a little, gentleness is enough." Yeting never thought that she would say such things. He suddenly thought, did he have too high demands on this girl and burden her with too many things? After all, she was only a 13-year-old, just a girl. He understood why everything happened last night. This girl was really insecure. 13 years of wandering and exile and her cruel, rude and irritable brother made her seek all possible support, even though she contained powerful power within herself. The king, she has great potential and lofty ideals, but before she can really make a difference, she still instinctively seeks strong support. In the original book it was Drogo, but now it's him. In the original work, she quickly fell in love with Drogo, who she originally thought was a barbarian, and enjoyed the time she spent with him. After Drogo's death, she never forgot him throughout her life. Daenerys is such a character. No matter this, Yeting's existence can give her enough time to grow up, and also give her the opportunity to enjoy her youth like an ordinary young girl. Although she will no longer experience the ups and downs and blows of fate in the original work, under Yeting's constant teaching and constant practice, I believe she will become a great ruler in the future. He also lost his father at a young age, he also inherited his noble status, he was also related to dragons and was of the blood of a true dragon. What Artoria Pendragon can do, I believe Daenerys Targaryen can also do. Perhaps during this period, Yeting had to do what Merlin did back then, perhaps even more than Merlin. But Merlin probably wouldn't enjoy the king's tenderness like he did. After all, Vivian, old Ghost May is not a good person. The morning is coming to an end, and the Dothraki warriors are already naked to the waist, riding horses and forming a long queue on the grassland. Some of them are holding arak scimitars, a scimitar that is easy to chop on horseback, and some are holding araks. They were brandishing spears, some were holding long whips, and they were carrying bows and arrows on their backs. The scouts had already set off, galloping back and forth under the city walls of Pentos, making provocative moves. A large number of Jokelan holding heavy axes, specializing in relieving the wounded, were waiting at the end of the team. The teenagers rode ponies, brandished wooden weapons, and pointed enviously at the soldiers from a distance, while the women and children stayed in the camp waiting for their fate. Yeting and Daenerys rode black and silver horses respectively, standing at the front of the Dothraki. Yora, as the bodyguard of the Nukel, was guarding them in heavy armor, and there were several others. 3 young Dothraki warriors were also there, the most fanatical followers of the dragon god among the Dothraki. Tijian's display of power conquered them all at once. Yeting nodded to Daenerys, then jumped up, transformed into the image of a dragon in the air, and then flew towards the wall of Pentos. Behind him, the Dothraki people cheered like Dragon God is on top. Dragon God bless you! Yeting's transformation made them more confident in their faith and the power of their new master. Now the Dothraki warriors have boosted their morale and are eager to try. So according to Yeting's instructions in advance, Daenerys put on the dragon blood crown. The familiar coercion immediately gave her incomparable majesty in front of the Dothraki people. They began to truly admit that the petite girl in front of them would be their new lover. Ka'a is the earthly representative of the dragon god. Dothraki warriors, she shouted, the dragon blood crown allowing her voice to spread throughout Kaleza, the dragon god's messenger has already taken the lead and attacked the walls of Pentos. Under the dragon gods under the power, the walls of Pentos are nothing more than a small fence in front of us. Everyone, charge with me now. 0, please give me flowers. The sound of intensive horse hooves instantly resounded on the prairie, and across Kaleza, tens of thousands of people marched towards the city of Pentos. In fact, after discovering the abnormalities of the Dothraki people, the governors of Pentos were already on standby. They lined the city walls with crossbowmen, trebuchets, and crossbows, and soldiers in armor also gathered in formation at the city gate. However, when they discovered the dragon appearing in the distance, the governors were completely panicked. They never thought that before they could withstand the attack of the Dothraki, they would have to face dragons' minions and flames. They never thought that Khal Drogo was dead and that the dragon had conquered the Dothraki. It's a group. These mortals, who had grown up listening to the legend of dragon but had never seen dragon, gingerly pointed all the long-range weapons they could find in the direction of dragon, hoping to prevent this legendary disaster. 0 But soon, they discovered that they had completely underestimated dragon's power and wisdom. This huge behemoth made elegant and flexible flight movements in the air, causing most of the hurled stones and giant crossbows to miss occasionally. Some arrows fell on dragon, which was only considered effective against the strong dragon scales. Tickle. After only a short time, dragon flew over the city wall. Huge amounts of black shadow passed over the heads of the soldiers. The sound of flapping wings and the wind pressure caused them to flee in panic. Soon, the city wall there were only a few people left above. However, dragon did not attack the fleeing soldiers. He opened his dragon's mouth and sprayed the hot and powerful dragon's breath towards the solid city gate. The heat and impact of the flames immediately caused cracks in the city gate. The next moment, dragon actually gave up its air superiority, swooped down, and crashed into the city gate. There was a loud noise, the city gate opened, and the debris was scattered on the ground. Dragon, on the other hand, was just a little dizzy. He shook his head, then flapped his wings and flew up again. What a scary dragon! In the following period, the governors discovered that the dragon had no intention of doing anything to the city. He neither set fire to the city nor preyed on people. He just kept hovering near the city gate, and then breathed out fiery dragon breath at any soldiers who dared to approach the city gate. Soon, several charred corpses appeared at the wide open city gate, and no soldiers dared to approach it again. The governors felt a little baffled at first and didn't know what dragon's purpose was, but not long after, as the familiar sound of horse hooves sounded outside the city gate, the governors finally understood. Dragon and the Dothraki are on the same side. The fall of Pentos is already destined. Pictured are Panto Kais. Chapter 166. The process of capturing Pentos went extremely smoothly. In fact, this is inevitable. The mere presence of dragon scares everyone, and the Dothraki are the most powerful light cavalry. Without the protection of the city wall, there are almost no troops left. They will be their opponents on land. If according to the nature of the Dothraki, after winning the war, they plan to burn, kill, and loot the city. However, Yeting attacked Pentos not for killing and wealth, but for occupation and people. So before entering the city, Daenerys issued strict orders prohibiting the Dothraki from killing, kidnapping women, and plundering in the city. Since they were a newly conquered army, the Dothraki people were eager to show their loyalty to Dany and their faith in the dragon god, so most of them carried out the orders perfectly. Anyone who disobeyed was torn to pieces on the spot by the dragon patrolling the sky. The citizens of May 27th did not suffer much harm because of their entry into the city. Instead, many rebels and local gangsters took advantage of the chaos to plunder and plunder. This time it was the Dothraki who maintained order, which made the citizens of Pentos have a good impression of this strange army. When Pentos was completely occupied, Daenerys issued her first order as the new master of the city, to gather all the citizens into the city square. Such a gathering could easily be misinterpreted as the Dothraki wanting to beat them up, make them slaves or kill them all, but under the threat of swords and guns, the Pentos still came pushing and shoving with a sense of luck. The conquerors were waiting in the square of the city. In the square where citizens gather. As usual, Yeting transformed from the image of a dragon into a human being, and then showed some of his miracles to the citizens. In Pentos, beliefs are free and chaotic, from the 7 gods of Westeros to Arhillar, the most widely believed, to the old woman's favorite weeping woman, the night lion favored by merchants, and the poor people's worship. The horse god worshipped by the hooded walkers and the Dothraki. However, the churches of these gods have not performed any miracles for a long time. The only way to maintain their faith is to pretend to be gods and ghosts. However, under the real miracles and the threats of dragon and guns, most of the citizens immediately expressed their new support for them. Of divine belief. Indeed, in this ignorant medieval world, what could be more touching than creating a real miracle? Now that the dragon god has been recognized, everything is easy. Daenerys was subsequently confirmed as the ruler. She promulgated a series of new measures and laws in front of the citizens, and reduced some taxes. This was immediately welcomed by most citizens. Subsequently, Daenerys announced what to do with the soldiers guarding the city and the original rulers, the governors. Most of the soldiers and governor were pardoned. Only the leader G was sentenced to death for resisting the dragon god's army. The remaining governors were fined. Now everyone is happy. The citizens were not treated cruelly, and their lives could still go on, and maybe they would get better. Most of the governors saved their lives in front of the brutal Dothraki. What does losing some gold mean? That's what they did in the past. No, in the past, the Dothraki didn't even care about the city and the governors would naturally give it to them with gold and all kinds of wealth. Unfortunately, during the subsequent banquet to receive the new city lord and the divine envoy, these governors discovered that this strange group of Dothraki and their leader really wanted to rule the city for a long time. Instead of evacuating immediately after gaining enough benefits like the Dothraki in the past. In fact, it started with the first order given by Daenerys after entering the city. She has been working hard to maintain peace and stability in the city. Whether it is giving up murder and arson and switching to maintaining order, or reducing taxes instead of imposing excessive taxes. This can be easily seen from these commands. But history doesn't really lower taxes. He only lowered the tax rates for ordinary citizens and craftsmen. But it has improved a tax on all merchants, and required them to pay taxes only in gold and silver. Such an order was indeed the first of its kind for the free trade city. In trading city-states, most of the lucrative businesses were in the hands of governors. These governors were originally big businessmen. They gained power because of their wealth and maintained their wealth through power. Now, Daenerys arrives. As a result, they lost most of their rights, and now, she is going to attack their wealth. But this is indeed of great benefit, because after all, the businessmen in the city are only a minority, but they occupy most of the wealth. Through such measures, the tax revenue Daenerys can receive is only higher than the previous tax revenue from the trading city-state. But she only offended a very small number of people, and the vast majority of civilians cheered for her. But will Daenerys, who has mastered the army, be afraid of these few merchants? Originally, these governors and big businessmen expected Daenerys to compromise with them, because they were the bosses in the city. They feel that Daenerys needs them to rule because her men are a group of reckless men who only know how to fight and kill, and Daenerys herself is only a 13-year-old girl who knows nothing about economics and politics. Without them, Daenerys might not even be able to pay a single gold coin in taxes. However, a few days later they discovered that they were wrong. On the one hand, Daenerys reused and supported some of their merchants who had smaller businesses and lower rankings. When these merchants found something profitable, they immediately abandoned their original allies and took refuge with the new master. This allowed Daenerys' rule to find an entry point and be able to fully understand the situation in Pentos. On the other hand, Daenerys began to select people who could write, calculate, and have certain ideas and prestige among citizens, craftsmen, and free people as grassroots officials. Although these people's families are not rich and their selfishness will not be small after becoming officials, they are very good at checking and balancing the power of businessmen. In addition, Daenerys herself also possesses great natural leadership qualities. She has never forgotten her miserable childhood, which makes her more compassionate than other rulers. She has implemented what she considers as the Justice and Fairness 3.0 governance policies throughout the whole process, and has personally visited the people more than once. Describe and explain one's policies to civilians and ordinary soldiers, and prevent some unfair things from happening. Although she lacks governance experience, it is obvious that Daenerys has learned enough ruling methods from Yeting. The 5,000-year history of the Earth is his treasure house. In the past few days, she spent every night with Yeting, frantically learning all kinds of knowledge about business, agriculture, economics, politics, religion, etc. from him, and after finishing studying, she arranged the night for him. Lonely. Although today's Daenerys still has some naive and immature shortcomings in politics, she can indeed be said to be quite skillful. But she is not worried about her lack of experience, because she still has Yeting standing behind her. Even if she makes any mistakes, Yeting can make up for it with absolute strength. Chapter 167. When Daenerys focused on dealing with the internal affairs of Pentos, Yeting is dealing with people's religious beliefs. He planned to establish the first Dragon God Church in Pentos City. In Pentos. Or the entire free trade city. People's beliefs are very complex, and various named and unnamed gods all have followers here. Place even if Yeting wants to establish the Dragon God Church. Nor can we completely deny other beliefs and treat all pagans as heretics, otherwise Pentos will definitely be in chaos. Now, he can only demonstrate the superiority of the Dragon God Church by boiling frogs in warm water in order to expel other churches. However, the Dragon God Church still has very big advantages. For example, Yeting, as a god envoy, can cause miracles. Another example is that he can provide some artifacts to prove the power of the Dragon God. In fact, these are just some ordinary magic props that he used to practice his skills. But these simple magics and magic props are very popular in this world where magic power is exhausted. Many ignorant citizens decided to convert to the Dragon God Church almost in the blink of an eye. Soon, the Dragon God Church ushered in great development in the city of Pentos. Almost half of the citizens soon converted to the 04 Dragon God Church, and most of the rest were also in hesitation. As long as Yeting can cause a greater miracle, then the remaining citizens will also become believers of the Dragon God. With a certain number of believers as a foundation, Yeting's next task is to select candidates among the believers and let them become the first batch of clergy of the Dragon God Church. Most of the candidates for the clergy are civilians who are already highly respected, or priests who have taken refuge in other churches. These priests who converted to the Dragon God Church have rich missionary experience. Only by using them can the church create a basic situation in a short period of time. In addition, Yeting also spent time writing a Dragon God Codex for the Dragon God Church. This Dragon God Codex is the basic book and theoretical foundation of the Dragon God religion. It describes how the Dragon God created the world, how the Dragon God created the first batch of creatures, etc. The history of the founding is also added. Some fictitious myths, fables, chicken soup for the soul, etc. Since Yeting has read the original work and has some understanding of the history of A Song of Ice and Fire from ancient times, he has compiled these myths into a model. Some, such as the history recorded in the runes carved on rocks by the ancestors, are all mentioned one by one in the Dragon Codex. Even the most knowledgeable bachelor in Westeros can't fault it. Something is wrong. In addition, he also proposed precepts such as the 8 precepts, the 7 virtues, and the 7 deadly sins in the Holy Scriptures, which are very clear and logical. Much smarter than those of the 7 gods, Arhiller, and the like. As for where Yeting's theories came from, there are a lot of classics from the monotheistic religion next door on Earth that you can learn from. Those religious theories that have matured over the course of human history are incomparable to the more primitive religions in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire. Also, Yeting also added some personal items to Dragon God's Codex. For example, in the classics, his status is like Michael in the monotheistic religion. He is the right hand of the Dragon God, the first envoy under the Dragon God, the chief warrior beside the Dragon God, and the supreme commander of the Dragon Legion. and Daenerys became a figure similar to King David or King Solomon in the history of monotheism. In addition, in order to explain his behavior of unifying Westeros and Essos, he also added the Dragon God Church's prophecies about the future in the clique. The prophecy states, when the Dragon God returns, the Dragon God's messenger will select a king on the earth who will inherit the blood of the true dragon. This king's ancestors were betrayed, but the king will return. And the blood of the true dragon has been the land that rules. The betrayer will eventually be betrayed by those around him, and the stag will eventually be devoured by the lioness. The old throne will be divided into 5, but the true dragon will rise and merge into one, destroying it with blood and fire. Forged into a new throne. For time travelers, pretending to be a magic stick through spoilers is definitely a basic operation. The so-called king who inherits the true dragon's blood is definitely Daenerys Targaryen, because the Targaryen family originally claimed to inherit the dragon's blood. Their family's coat of arms is red on a black background. A sexy single 3-headed fire-breathing dragon. The betrayer and the deer refer to the current king of the Seven Kingdoms, Robert Baratheon. He was jealous of the second prince Rhaegar Targaryen and raised the flag of rebellion in anger, and then he won the throne. The sigil of House Baratheon is a black-crowned stag on a gold background. The lioness and the person who betrayed Robert refer to Robert's current queen, Cersei Lannister, nicknamed the Queen of S***X. Although she is Robert's queen, Robert's 3 princes and princesses are all the children of Cersei and her twin brother Jaime Lannister, so when the eldest prince Joffrey inherited the throne, the Iron Throne actually became the possession of the Lannister family. The sigil of House Lannister is a golden roaring lion on crimson earth. In the end, the Iron Throne was divided into 5. After Robert's death, due to the exposure of Joffrey's bloodline, 5 of the princes of the Seven Kingdoms, including Joffrey himself, claimed to be kings. Battle of the 5 Kings. Such a prophecy is not superficial. In fact, anyone who has a little knowledge of the situation in the Seven Kingdoms can see what the prophecy expresses without any ambiguity. But it's one thing to see it, and another thing to believe it or not. However, when everything in the prophecy is fulfilled exactly, the influence and legitimacy of the Dragon God sect will be greatly increased. And Daenerys will use this to gain great prestige. After all, most of the prophecies have come true, so few people will not believe the last sentence. In order to make the Dragon God Church become the mainstream faith in the world, Yeting has made a lot of preparations. However, Yeting cannot always be responsible for maintaining the church. After all, the game of hegemony is just his pastime in this world, and his real purpose is not to become a pope, but to study the dragon bloodline of this world and explore the magic of this world. Therefore, he needs to find a suitable person to manage the church for him, just like Daenerys manages the political power. However, ordinary pastors are easy to find, but it is not so easy to find a bishop who can truly be responsible for managing a nascent church and developing it. But this is not a problem for Yeting. In fact, he has already had a candidate for this bishop's position, definitely poached from other churches. After all, the bishop's position requires a certain amount of experience. He can't be like let's start from scratch just like raising Daenerys. The only question now is, how to lure him out. Yeting was already prepared for this. After arranging the initial affairs of the church, he locked himself in a room and worked on blacksmithing and enchanting, just to prepare for a miracle. On the one hand, he would make the future bishop of the Dragon God Church fall into a trap, and on the other hand, he would also can increase prestige for Daenerys. Chapter 168. A week has passed since Daenerys, the female cul of the Dothraki Sea, captured Pentos. During this week, Daenerys fully demonstrated her ability as a ruler. Although she was a bit immature, she did manage Pentos and his Kayla in an orderly manner in a short period of time. Even the cunning original Pan, the governors of Toss, also had to be convinced by her. Although she experienced a day of war and chaos, Pentos quickly restored the original order. No, it was more prosperous than before. She first suppressed the merchants by increasing taxes, and attracted citizens and craftsmen by reducing taxes. This made she quickly established her dominance. Then, she took out treasures that seemed to be owned by gods, such as real crystals, actually glass, but the glass in A Song of Ice and Fire refers to various natural crystals, and obsidian. Such crystal is completely transparent, without any flaws, far superior to all natural crystals, and quite cheap. There is also a kind of crystal with smooth surface and gorgeous patterns. High-level pottery called porcelain. Dishes made of porcelain look more noble than those made of pure gold. Daenerys brought out the methods for making these treasures, and the merchants of Pentos immediately became red-eyed. They began to rush to her service and swore allegiance to her, just to get the right to make and sell these treasures. Power, because these unprecedented treasures are incomparable to the original crystals and pottery in terms of appearance and practicality. They can make all the governors of the entire free trade city and the nobles of the 7 countries obediently hand over the treasures in their pockets. Every gold coin. Having them means having mountains of gold and silver. Since the merchants were able to obtain greater benefits from Daenerys, they recognized her policies and became obedient people under Daenerys' command. As a result, Daenerys' status as ruler has become unbreakable. In addition, her child showed his ability on the other hand. The Dothraki and the citizens of Pentos, who were originally hostile to each other and looked down upon each other, began to understand and recognize each other under her influence. She used her own righteousness and fairness, coupled with the dragon god. The power of the church integrates the two into a whole, although this whole is not stable enough. As time goes by, I believe that there will no longer be a distinction between Dothraki and Pentos among these people. There is a saying among Westlanders, Targaryen is either mad or great. Daenerys seems to have inherited the great natural leadership ability, or attraction, among the Targaryens. Today, her followers are devoted to her, respecting and loving her. As the dragon reappeared and Pentos was occupied, the whole world seemed to have changed. It was said that the glass candle, obsidian candle, that had been extinguished for 100 years was burning again in the house of Nightcrawler Erathon. Ghostweed grows in the gardens of Jehane. Phantom turtles are seen passing messages between the windowless houses of the Wizard's Avenue, and all the rats in the city bite off their own tails. Those who once laughed at the wizard are cursed. Doom. And a certain blessed blind man actually regained his sight. Magic seems to be reviving in this world. But this is inevitable. This world originally had no magic power, and all its magic was originally related to dragons. The dragon's breath would produce true ether, which was the only source of magic power in this world. After the doomsday catastrophe of Valyria, most of the dragons in the world died in that disaster. The production of true ether gradually dried up, and the power of magic became smaller and smaller. More than 100 years ago, with the death of the last dragon of the Targaryen family, magic officially disappeared from this world. Now, with the emergence of Yeting, the true ether created by him as dragon has finally begun to revive the magic of this world. And with the hatching of 3 dragon eggs in the future, the power of magic will officially become an indispensable part of this world. In addition to the rumors about magic, another legend began to spread near Pentos. It seems that a few days ago, in a village on the outskirts of Pentos, a farmer discovered something glowing in an open space not far from the village when he went out at night. The light was far greater than that of a torch. Like the sun at night. The villagers were frightened and thought it was some kind of monster, so they fled back home. Early the next morning, when he gathered the villagers to the open space, they were surprised to find that a 1-meter-high stone appeared overnight in the empty space. On the stone was written there were a few lines of words, but the villagers couldn't understand them. There was a sword with a golden red hilt and a red blade stuck in the stone. The hilt was inlaid with precious gems. When the villagers approached the sword, they found that its blade was burning with golden flames. The scorching temperature made them unable to help. Dare to get close, and that dazzling light comes from this. This rumor spread quickly. In a blink of an eye, the entire Pentos and even several other free trade cities had heard the news. Curious scholars and mercenaries went to find out what was going on. As expected, they found this weapon stuck in a stone. They picked up the sword, but the blazing heat prevented them from touching the sword. After that, many people came here and tried to take away the sword, but everyone who touched the sword was burnt to death by the golden flames. They tried everything, including extinguishing the flames with water, pulling away the sword with fireproof ropes, and trying to dig up the entire boulder, but no one could succeed. Whether it is water or any other material, as long as it comes into contact with the fire, it will be burned immediately. It seems that only the stone is not originally afraid of the flame, Lees, and the huge stone is buried no matter how deep it is. No matter how hard they dig, they can't get to the bottom. Finally, people stopped trying to take away the sword. Scholars and explorers came here later. They wanted to find out what the sword was. Some people had already made some guesses about it. They believed it was a sword wielded by the legendary hero Azor Ahai, Lightbringer. When the ancient Zayan script carved on the stone was translated, the origin of the sword shocked everyone. Engraved on the stone are these words: after the long summer, the stars will cry blood, and the cold darkness will cover the world. At this terrifying moment, a king will pull out the burning sword from the fire. That sword is the Lightbringer, the red sword of heroes. Holding the one who has this sword is the reincarnation of Azor Ahai, and he will become the only king in the world. He will save the world and drive away the darkness. Chapter 169. Azor Ahai is a legendary hero. According to the legends of Asai and followers of Arhillar, he possesses a flaming sword, the Lightbringer. But in fact, regarding the Terminator of the Long Night, various cultures have depicted a heroic image, but the name of this hero is different. The planet in A Song of Ice and Fire has a completely different revolution from the Earth. Summer and winter often last for several years. After winter comes, the Seven Kingdoms will face a kind of darkness from the north called the White Walkers. Biological invasion. The White Walkers are tall and gaunt, with pale skin and deep blue eyes like ice. Their reflective armor changes color as they move, and their weapons are long swords made of extremely cold ice crystals, which can instantly freeze objects they touch into ice sculptures and then shatter them. They hate the living and will brutally kill all living creatures they see, and can turn dead people or animals into ghouls, that is, moving corpses. According to legend, 8,000 years ago, in the winter that lasted for a generation, in the long dark age called the Long Night, the White Walkers first came to the world and created huge amounts of chaos in the continent of Westeros. War almost wiped out the entire population of Westeros. Finally, under the leadership of Azor Ahai holding the Lightbringer, the ancestors and the children of the forest worked together to defeat the alien 970 ghosts in the Battle of Dawn and drove them back to the land of eternal winter, and were led by Builder Bran climb the Great Wall of Despair to prevent them from going south again. That was when the Night's Watch Corps, responsible for guarding the Great Wall, was established. And after that, there was a prophecy in the ancient book of Asai, after the long summer, the stars weep blood, Azor Ahai will be reborn in the land of smoke and salt, and awaken the dragon in the stone. Nowadays, the legend is appearing in front of people. After that, knights, nobles and adventurers continued to come here. They thought they were the reincarnation of Azor Ahai, and wanted to try to pull out the sword and gain power and status, but no one succeeded. All those who tried died violent deaths. However, the power is tempting, and more people come here to try to draw the sword, including many distinguished nobles or mercenary captains. These people sometimes conflict with each other and fight near the sword, making the place a mess. Soon, the city lord of Pentos, the female Daenerys, reacted. She sent cavalry to surround the place, and those who drew the sword were not allowed to enter, but scholars were allowed to visit. But unexpectedly, she did not take possession of the sword alone. Although the sword appeared on the outskirts of Pentos, she had every right to do so, but instead announced that Chang would hold a meeting a month later. He held a sword-drawing ceremony and invited all knights and nobles who thought they were qualified to draw the sword to participate and try to draw the sword under the witness of everyone. She even announced that the appearance of this sword was the instruction of the dragon god. Anyone who can pull out the sword is the savior recognized by the dragon god. She will give up all her status to assist this savior so that he can complete the mission given by the dragon god. Mission. As soon as this declaration came out, it was equivalent to a marriage revelation in the eyes of all careerists. In their view, the little girl Daenerys was just getting married to Khal Drogo, and she was lucky enough to survive Dragon's attack. He survived, but was regarded by the ignorant Dothraki people as some kind of dragon god's agent, and was worshipped as the new Khal. Then he was lucky enough to get Pentos, who was attacked by dragon. But the little girl is a little girl after all, and she does not have the ability to govern at all. She has to find a way to find a husband who can be entrusted to her, and give everything she has in the hope of restoring the country to that person. A little girl always depends on a man. However, this is indeed a good opportunity, a chance to gain both life and wealth, and reach the sky in one step. If anyone is lucky enough to be able to pull out this sword, he will not only have the name of the reincarnation of Azor Ahai, but also immediately get the territory of the city, a Dothraki army in Kalasha, and a jure rule over the 20 kingdoms. Under this circumstance, careerists throughout the free trade city responded to Daenerys's call. They gathered in Pentos to prepare for the ceremony 1 month later. In fact, there were indeed not many people who came after hearing the news. There were several mercenary groups alone, including the Second Sons group led by Marrow and the Wind-Blowing group led by the Prince of Tattered Clothes. The Storm Crows, which has the 3 leaders of Prenda N. Aegison, Bald Solo and Dario Naharis, the Yellow, ABC, Gold group led by Harry Strickland, etc., and there are also some governors and nobles from Westeros. In the month before the sword-drawing ceremony, Pentos ushered in unprecedented prosperity. A large number of immigrants brought a large amount of consumption, and Panto's new products, glass products and porcelain, took advantage of this period. The official publicity will begin. Most of these careerists from all over the world were well informed and well connected, but they had never seen such exquisite and beautiful luxuries as glass and porcelain. So the merchants of Pantos made a fortune, but in the end the important thing is that glass and porcelain were promoted through the arrival of these mercenaries and nobles. When they leave Pantos, the new luxury goods from Pantos will sweep through the entire free trade city with them. In addition to the careerists who try to uproot the Lightbringer and inherit the name of Azor Aha, as well as the scholars who hope to study the history of 8,000 years ago through this sword and this stone, the Lightbringer also attracts another group of people, are the priests of various sects. Azor Aha is a legendary hero, and prophecies about him are widely found in various sects in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, and the ones who respect him the most are the King of Light and the Heart of the Holy Flame. The God of Shadow and Fire, the sect of Arhillar, and the prophecies in the ancient Book of Char were regarded as the guideline by the priests of Arhillar. Now that the Light Messenger is born, how can it not attract their arrival? They will at least come here to confirm the authenticity of the Light Messenger. The Arhillar priest who came here this time was a red-robed woman named Melisandre. Melisandre is a beautiful woman with a heart-shaped face, red eyes, copper-red hair, and a heat exuding from her body. Melisandre does not need to eat like a mortal, she can meet the energy needs only by relying on the Lord of Light. She claims to have spent countless years improving her abilities, so it's possible she's older than she looks. In the original book, after the death of King Robert of the Seven Kingdoms, Melisandre persuaded his brother Stannis Baratheon to burn all the statues of the seven gods in his territory and Dragonstone. She then claimed that Stannis was reborn as Azor Aha, had him draw a sword from the fire, and claimed the sword to be the legendary Lightbringer. In fact, Yeting is playing the same tricks as her now. But Yeting is much smarter than her. Melisandre's ability can only create a luminous sword, but this sword cannot produce any flames. But Yeting is different. The sword he made actually has golden flames. This kind of flame is so radiant and burns nothing, not even the legendary Light Messenger can be stronger than it. What's even better is that Yeting doesn't have to direct or perform a sword drawing drama at all. Since his magic level is high enough, he can let everyone who is willing to draw a sword participate in it. Only in this way can the truly designated sword drawer gain the greatest reputation and be recognized by everyone. Definitely, Yeting has another purpose, and that is the entire faith of Arhillar. The picture shows the true sword of the chosen king. Chapter 170. When Melisandre walked up to the boulder, she was indeed shocked. She was sure that the red sword burning with golden flames in front of her could never be man-made. Melisandre considers herself to be the top magic master in all of Asia. At least among the priests of Arhillar, no one is better at using the power of magic than her. The Land of Shadows Asai is originally a city immersed in magic. There are no more magicians in the world than Asai. Arhillar is the largest belief in the continent of Essos. In this second only to the Church of the Seven Gods in the world, that is to say, Melisandre herself can be regarded as someone who stands at the pinnacle of magical power. Even with her power, she can't see the principle of this sword, nor can she create a replica that has its capabilities. Doesn't this prove that this sword is a creation of God? This sword is the legendary Lightbringer of Azor Aha. The prophecy is about to be fulfilled, and the reincarnation of Azor Aha is about to come. She was determined to witness this scene and assist the reincarnation of Azor Aha in completing his mission. So, she knelt down in front of the boulder and silently recited prayers. We mortals are living alone and dying alone, confused and wandering in the valley. Fortunately, we have gathered our compatriots and traveled together. Fortunately, God has blessed us with blessings. Suddenly, she felt that she was surrounded by darkness. It was obviously broad daylight and the sun was still shining high above her head, but in her eyes, all the light disappeared, only the sword on the boulder in front of her was still shining brightly. She immediately became alert, stood up, and was alert. This darkness was quite deep and strange, as if some monster would emerge from it at any time and devour her. Suddenly, she shouted, "Who is it?" In the darkness, a young man walked out. She thought this young man was only 15 years old at most. He was quite handsome, with black hair and black eyes. He was wearing gorgeous clothes of a style she had never seen before. He had a faint smile on his face, but it put considerable pressure on her, as if a huge stone was pressing on her heart. However, as soon as the young man approached, she felt excited all over her body, and she felt that her magic power immediately became stronger. "Who are you?" she asked, resisting the pressure in her heart and the physical attraction. When she said these words, she felt that she was no longer the priest of Arhillar who was admired by millions of believers, but just a small mortal who was questioning a great being without any violation of the law. I am the Messiah, your light and your Savior, who will save the world in the darkness. I am the messenger of God, who comes to the earth to choose shepherds to feed the lambs on the earth. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with the Dragon God, and the Word was the Dragon God. All things were made through him, without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and this life was the light of man. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness does not accept the light. I was sent from the Dragon God as his messenger to bear witness, that is, to bear witness to the light, so that all men may believe through him. He is not the light, but to bear witness to the light. That light is the true light, illuminating everyone who lives in the world. The boy's gentle voice soothed Melisandre's heart like morning light, making her feel as if any hostility towards him was a sin. Melisandre felt that she was almost succumbing to his words, but her years of faith in Arhillar still allowed her to brace herself and retort. No. No, Arhillar didn't send any envoys. You blasphemer, tell me. Who are you? As she spoke, a flame burst out from her palm and was aimed at the boy in front of her, but at the moment, she completely lost her previous grace. Melisandre believed that if a necromancer appeared careless when casting spells, people would be more afraid of him, so she always used various means to hide the efforts she made when casting spells to make herself look more mysterious. But now, in front of this young man, she couldn't care much anymore. But in the face of her hostility, the young man did not get angry, his face remained warm, and he chanted, "The Dragon God has returned to the world. The world was also created through him, but the world does not recognize him. His messenger comes to his own place, but his own received him not. But to all who did receive him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, even to those who believed in his name." Then, he stared into Melisandre's eyes and said seriously, "Since the departure of the Dragon God, there is no second God in the world. All gods are the incarnations of the Dragon God. When the Dragon God returns, all incarnations will belong to the Dragon God, and all faith also belong to the Dragon God. I don't believe it." Melisandre shouted to herself, as if she wanted to use a louder voice to convince herself, "Arhillar, the King of Light, is the only God. There has never been a Dragon God. Don't lie to me anymore. Ignorant lamb, you must not be blinded by the incarnation of God. Magic is the power given by God to his lamb. When God returns, magic will also return. 0, please give me flowers." Feeling the increasingly powerful magic power in her body, Melisandre actually believed it, because the closer this messenger of God came to her, the more powerful she could feel herself becoming. Then, in her eyes, the messenger of God actually ignored the scorching flames, grasped the hilt of the messenger of light with his hand, and then pulled him up. How is it possible? She obviously doesn't even dare to touch this sword, so why can this godly envoy do it? Is he the real godly envoy? Seeing Melisandre's doubtful and surprised eyes, the boy smiled slightly and said, "This sword is my sword. I have used this sword to fight against God's enemies, kill evil spirits, and command the heavenly army. On the ground when I fell into darkness, I threw this sword to the ground. The destined person will hold this sword to fight against the evil spirits on the earth and command the Lamb of God. Now that the darkness on the earth has come again, I will give this sword to the new destined person, enabling him to fight the darkness, save the Lamb of God, and become the king of the earth. 0. In Christian paintings and sculptures, Michael often appears as a boy with long blonde hair, holding a red cross, or a red cross-shaped sword, fighting with dragon or standing on the dragon. That is to say, in the Holy Dragon in the Code, there is nothing wrong with saying that Lightbringer is the sword of the divine messenger. After that, he waved the sword lightly, and the light of the sword became brighter, just like the sun falling to the ground. The scorching flames also surrounded the boy, but they did not hurt him at all, as if he was the master of the flames. Melisandre did not dare to look directly at the blazing light. She couldn't help but kneel on the ground and murmured, "Sinner Melisandre, blind and ignorant, only recognizes the incarnation of God but does not recognize the true nature of God. From now on, I wish to believe in my God and hope that God will forgive my sins." Seeing Melisandre like this, Yeting, holding the light messenger, secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He finally managed to master the most powerful weapon in A Song of Ice and Fire and didn't waste his sun gold to forge such a sword. It seems that the future bishop of the Dragon God cult and the annexation of our Hiller's faith are certain. Something happened. P.S. The picture shows Melisandre in addition. I actually got Michael and Lucifer wrong before. I am really ashamed of myself. Chapter 171. However, the play must be completed. He inserted the sword back into the boulder, and the light immediately converged. Then, he helped Melisandre up and said to her, although you don't know my god, it's not too late for the lamb to know his way back. Yes. After hearing Yeting's words of understanding, Melisandre knelt down at Yeting's feet again excitedly and devoutly, kissed his shoes, and made a happy sound. You are a god, the messenger is the Messiah, our light and our savior. Yeting shook his head helplessly. If it weren't for the cleaning spell, she would have made a mouthful of dust. However, after the cleaning spell was cast, his shoes were cleaner than Melisandre's face. This time, she didn't. He helped her up again and said to her warmly, you are a righteous person on earth. Although you have not known the true God, you can do your best to spread the glory of God. Now the Dragon God has returned and will build his temple on the earth. Teach people to believe in him. I want you to become the Pope and spread the gospel of the Dragon God to the world. Do you have any complaints? Hearing this, Melisandre 967 Sandra was about to kneel down excitedly again. This time, she was supported by Yeting in time, so she kissed his hand instead and said, Melisandre has no complaints, seeing you is seeing God, and it is God's will that you allow me to spread God's gospel on earth, and Melisandre will spread God's gospel on earth. Yeting nodded, took out a red gem, handed it to Melisandre, and said, since you are willing to spread the gospel for God, God will give you the power to spread the gospel. Melisandre took the red gem and immediately felt the surging magic power in it. She took off her gold necklace with rubies, took off the original gem, and then carefully embedded the gem. When she put on the necklace, she found that she was indeed much stronger than before. Those who originally had to rely on their robes and pockets contained various powders to manipulate flames to obtain different powers, such as predicting the truth, and even directly using kill. But now she no longer has to rely on these tricks. Her original strength is enough to control these spells. This is indeed the power of gods. Melisandre sighed, but in fact, this is just a new product made by Yeting after studying the magic stone, a magic furnace made by using his dragon's blood. It can independently generate true ether, but because it requires Yeting's original blood, it cannot be mass-produced. Immediately afterwards, Yeting turned around and left, and the surrounding darkness immediately receded. Before leaving, he reminded Melisandre, the Church of the Dragon God is now in Pentos. You can bring your past colleagues to help you. If they can know the true God, God will forgive them sin. In addition, the flames on this sword will no longer burn everything. Anyone can try to pull it out. Successful people become God's agents on the earth. You can also give it a try. This is God, the final test for his chosen king. After watching Yeting leave, Melisandre came to the sword. She discovered that although the golden flame did not disappear, the blazing high temperature was no longer there. She held the hilt of the sword and tried to pull it out, but no matter how hard she tried, she could not shake it with all the magic means after applying magic, her strength was short enough. He is stronger than all the strong men in the world, but even so, he cannot pull out the sword. This shows that the sword cannot be pulled out by strength. It seems that people really need to be approved by the Dragon God. With this thought in mind, she left in the direction of Yaxia. Before becoming the Pope of the Dragon God cult, she planned to recruit a group of people from the Arhiller cult. It would be best if all the priests and believers of Arhiller could know the true God and believe in the true God. This would definitely be a great achievement. One thing, Lord God Envoy will definitely appreciate her. A few days after Yeting met Melisandre, Melisandre brought back a large number of red-robed monks from Asai. This is the specific name for the role of priests among Arhiller believers. She was called so because they often wore loose scarlet robes. It seemed that she had a high prestige among these people, or maybe the power Yeting gave her had worked. After arriving in Pentos, Melisandre led the red-robed monks to first pay homage to the Lightbringer, and then secretly entered Pentos. Soon, in Pentos, they changed into another outfit. As the Pope, Melisandre wore white robes, held a scepter, put on a high hat, and wore a golden dress. The other senior officials wore red robes, and ordinary priests wore black robes, Yeting adhering to in order to use the doctrine, the monotheistic religion next door has a lot of good things. Led by Melisandre, they gathered in front of an open space in the city, knelt on the ground, and prayed devoutly. Dear Dragon God, you are the Lord who created heaven and earth and all things. You are the God who is kind to us. You are the Lord of heaven and earth and all things. You are the unique true God. You will be what you say, and what you command will be established. May everyone respect you. Thy name is holy. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we have forgiven our debtors. No. Lead us into temptation, deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Citizens passing by saw this scene, and believers who believed in the dragon god also joined in. Soon, a large and dark crowd of praying believers gathered in front of the open space. After reciting the prayer several times, all the priests in red and black stopped praying, and Melisandre herself stood up, raised the golden dragon-shaped scepter, and declared loudly, "My Lord Dragon God is above, we are your lambs on the earth. By the Lord's holy grace, we are willing to praise your name and spread your righteousness on the earth. If it is possible, please teach your holy place to appear before us. However, not my will, but yours be done." The moment she finished speaking, a miracle happened. A beam of warm holy light shone down from the sky. Soon, in the holy light, a church with an unprecedented style emerged from scratch and appeared in front of people's eyes. It was as if it had transformed from a mustard seed into a sumuru, ranging from small to large. The magnificence of this church is unprecedented. The main church is made of white marble. The entire building is in the shape of a Latin cross. The front is separated by 6 huge square columns and 5 copper doors. The doors are carved with many reliefs about the dragon god. There are more than 100 marble spears built on the top of the church. Each tower has a statue on the top and is decorated with reliefs. The forest of spears is upright and tall, giving people a feeling of soaring and sublimating, transcending the world. The central tower is the tallest among them, reaching almost 100 meters. On the tower is a 4-meter-high gold-inlaid bronze statue of the dragon god. The entire dragon god statue is dazzling in the sun. If there is an earthling here who is familiar with Europe, he will definitely be able to tell, isn't this the famous Milan Cathedral in Italy? For this miracle, Yeting really made some preparations. He spent a day and a night building such a cathedral with stones, and decorated the details with shape-shifting. Without the help of the dragon's heart and the wand weaver, the nest was made of stone. Magically creating such a church would definitely be exhausting for a person. After all, there are too many details. Then he used invisible extension to widen the interior, and used the water-making spell to enchant the fountain, and used Gubler's fairy fire, which is a kind of cast after 4.0, the shrinking spell was forcibly used to shrink it to the size of a palm file. However, such a reduction ratio cannot last long for such a large church. But that's enough. In the city of Pentos, a temple of the dragon god instantly appeared. Such a miracle was unprecedented in the entire Westeros and Essos. In the temple, there were inexplicable huge amounts of space, spring water that appeared out of nowhere, and no burning oil. But the flames that never go out, the constantly moving stairs, the moving statues and portraits, all of these make mortals believe that only the dragon god is the true god, because God does exist. Even those magicians, alchemists, and priests who have mastered some magic skills are no exception. How have they ever seen such a scene? So, when Melisandre announced her original identity and called on the followers of Arhilla after converting to the dragon god, a large number of scholars and priests from other sects came to convert to the dragon god. In this way, the Church of the Dragon God has made a perfect start in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, and its dominance in the future has begun to show. Chapter 172. On the day of the sword-drawing ceremony, the small village was bustling with activity. The most famous mercenary groups of the free trade city-state have gathered here. In addition, young nobles from the 9 major trade city-states, famous adventurers, knights from Westeros, and dilapidated nobles, etc., all jumping around in the village. In addition, there are many scholars, businessmen, priests of various sects, etc. who come here to watch. Among them are many fanatical believers and political speculators, who are always ready to pay allegiance to the king of the earth who draws his sword in order to obtain the dragon. Merit. Since the newly emerged Dragon God Church in Pentos has announced that the Dragon God has temporarily relieved the scorching heat of the sword to ensure that all those who try it will not die unexpectedly, more people come here than expected. As a new faith, the Dragon God Church is now quite influential in Pentos and even the entire free trade city. This is definitely because of the endless miracles of the Dragon God Church. The Temple of the Dragon God alone is an ever-present miracle and sign. Most of the people who participated in the sword-drawing ceremony have converted to the Dragon God cult. It is believed that as these people return to their original cities, the influence of the Dragon God cult will surpass the entire Essos. In addition, all participants know that anyone who can successfully pull out the sword will join the Dragon God cult, because among all faiths, only Melisandre, the Pope of the Dragon God cult, can make the Lightbringer respond. This also serves as a round of advertising for the Dragon God cult. No one would think that the Dragon God cult directs and acts on their own, because they believe that anomalies of this level may be miracles of the gods, and they cannot be what they think they are. I think so, then the power held by the Dragon God sect is too terrifying. Believing in the Dragon God sect is not a loss. Daenerys also came to the scene, and she won everyone's attention as soon as she appeared, definitely not only because of her peerless beauty, but also because of her generous dowry. Because of her declaration, many people present wanted to definitely regard her as the winner's trophy, but more thoughtful people knew that Daenerys herself was actually a strong competitor among the sword drawers. Their experience in Pentos during this period allowed them to fully understand this girl's governance methods and personality charm. Coupled with the bonus of Targaryen status, many people present were indeed impressed by her, but because of the Lightbringer, because of her existence, she has not sworn allegiance to her for the time being. Next to her is Yeting, who is also a very young boy, but no one dares to provoke him. It is said that he is the envoy of the Dragon God cult, although he has no position in Pentos or the Dragon God cult. But his power derived from the Dragon God makes no one dare to ignore his existence. In addition, the Pope of the Dragon God Church, Melisandre, also presided over the ceremony. This is also a very beautiful woman, and is a bit more mature than the immature Daenerys. This also represents another prize that people think of as the winner of the sword, the entire Church of the Dragon God. Today, this sword-drawing ceremony has unknowingly become a grand event that changes the entire situation in Essos. The person who pulls out the Lightbringer will not only gain the reincarnation of Azor Ahai and the destined king of the earth. By renewing his life, he can also immediately obtain the two beauties Daenerys and Melisandre, as well as the huge power they represent. In addition, if planned properly, many people present are likely to swear an oath to the destined king on the spot. Allegiance, Azor Ahai's prophecy and the recognition of the Dragon God Church are still quite convincing. Such a force already has the potential to unify the free trade cities. No wonder the governors of various city-states have successively sent their own descendants. Even Dorne, who chose Westeros, also sent the Red Viper Oberyn named Rose Mater. Dorne is the southernmost peninsula of Westeros and one of the Seven Kingdoms. Its capital is Sun's Pair. The rulers of Dorne are House Martell. In fact, the Martell family and the Targaryen family have a close relationship. 100 years ago, in order to conquer Dorne, the Targaryen family and the Martell family were married for generations. And now Robert, the king of the Seven Kingdoms, when he rebelled against the Targaryen dynasty, the object of his jealousy, Prince Rhaegar's first wife, was a princess from the Martell family, but she was not jealous of the heroine, Robert. Bob and Rhaegar competed for Lyanna, the sister of Duke Ed Stark, who is now the Guardian of the North. In order to avenge Rhaegar, Princess Elia and her children were brutally killed by the Lannister family when King's Landing fell. Since then, although Prince Doran Martell ostensibly swore allegiance to Robert Baratheon, they have always harbored anger and hatred towards the Lannister family, pursuing an isolation policy and not having anything to do with other families unless necessary. Coming and going. Secretly, the Martell family conspired with many old ministers of the Targaryen dynasty to restore the throne. The original candidate was Viserys Targaryen, but now that Viserys is dead, they have to focus on Daenerys. Now they plan to either support Daenerys or send a young man from the Martell family to marry Daenerys. Take this as an opportunity to rebel against Robert and take revenge. Oberyn Martell is the younger brother of Prince Doran Martell and the brother-in-law of Prince Rhaegar. Under the auspices of Melisandre, the ceremony of drawing the sword finally began. Due to so many people wanting to try it, the ceremony was scheduled to last 3 days. The first 2 days belonged to the rundown nobles and adventurers who just wanted to give it a try. They originally had little power and low reputation, so they could only try their luck here. The real big shots, including the sons of governors, small and powerful nobles, leaders of mercenary groups, and even leaders of pirate groups, will all try to draw their swords on the third day. The first 2 days of the ceremony passed by in a flash, and just as everyone imagined, no one could successfully release the sword. On the third day, it was the turn of these real dignitaries to try. Although these people are powerful people, there are also some truly extraordinary people. The sons of the governors of the free trade city came forward one by one and tried, but the sword seemed to grow in the stone, and no one could succeed. The eldest brother of King Balan of the Iron Islands and the captain of the Serenity, the feared Crow's Eye Euron Greyjoy went up, but this crazy and evil pirate did not succeed. After he stepped down, he looked at the rest of the family fiercely. The person below looked at him as if he would kill anyone who could pull out the sword. The merchant giant of Karth, Zaro Zanwan Daxos, who owned 84 ships, went up, but still failed. Quinton Martell also went up. He is the son of Prince Doran. The Martell family is preparing to marry Daenerys. This time he came here with his uncle Oberyn, but he also failed. The noble Hisdar Zolorik also went up. He is a noble of Mirian, one of the free trade cities. He has great influence in Mirian and is very wealthy. He has many arenas, but he does not go out. Failed unexpectedly. Afterwards, the three captains of the Storm Crows, Prenda N. Aegison, Bald Salo, and Dario Naharis, the Taggled Prince of the Windblown Regiment, Marrow of the Second Sons, and the Golden Regiment Harry Strickland and others all tried one by one. The leaders of these mercenary groups were all warriors with extraordinary skills, but none of them could shake the sword with their strength. Finally, after everyone tried it again, the Lightbringer was still firmly stuck on the boulder. Everyone sighed in disappointment, and some began to turn around and leave. Some fanatic believers said in disappointment, "Does the reincarnation of Azor Ahai really not exist? Has the god given up on us?" Suddenly, someone in the crowd shouted, "There are still people who haven't tried yet." Everyone looked over and saw that it was a Dothraki warrior responsible for maintaining order. He said loudly, "Our female call, Daenerys hasn't tried it yet." Crow's Eye 203 Euron Greyjoy was the first to laugh, and he said contemptuously, "A little girl still wants to be a king." These words aroused everyone's anger, and all the guards, all the Pentos people, and many mercenaries and adventurers who were impressed by Daenerys glared at him. At this time, Daenerys knew it was time for her to stand up. Ignoring Euron Greyjoy, she slowly walked out of the crowd. At the moment, she was wearing a white and gorgeous dress, and she looked young and beautiful, but beauty was not a sign of Azor Ahai's reincarnation. Some people started to frown and stare at her. Daenerys heard them whispering. Daenerys tried to ignore the sounds and continued walking. When she walked to Dashi, everyone's eyes were focused on her. They are all waiting. Daenerys took a step forward and held the hilt of the sword. Her hands were still shaking a little. She took a deep breath and remembered what Yeting said to her last night. "I'm ready, I'm just going through the motions." Out of her trust in Yeting, she forced herself to calm down and prepared to draw her sword. She separated her hands, grasped the gorgeous sword hilt with both hands, and pulled it out with all her strength. The sword seemed to be trembling in his hand, and after a while, the sword was pulled out. At that moment, the golden flame on the sword burned blazingly, and the blinding light and scorching heat wave made no one around him dare to get close. But she felt that the light was not dazzling, and the heat wave could not make her sweat. She raised her sword high, and a beam of golden light was cast in the sky, shining on the top of her head, making her beautiful, holy, and solemn. P.S. From Euron Greyjoy to Dario Naharis of the Stormcrows, the people mentioned are all people who pursued Daenerys in the original work Bad Taste. Chapter 173. Daenerys pulled out the legendary Lightbringer, and the Lightbringer's power responded to her call. This series of miracles shocked the audience. Especially when pulling out the Lightbringer, the dazzling golden light and terrifying heat made people have to admit that this is indeed the legendary sword, and Daenerys holding this sword can indeed be regarded as Azor. The reincarnation of Ahai, the destined savior and king of the earth. There were already fanatics and many mercenaries who were impressed by Daenerys, who lowered their heads and showed respect to Daenerys. After a while, Daenerys lowered her sword-raising hand, and the Lightbringer restrained the light and flames with understanding. Melisandre is about to step forward to announce the result. However, before anyone else could react, Euron Greyjoy stood up again. Yeting was very happy now. Before he could ask for help, someone came out to scare him. Euron Greyjoy looked at Daenerys greedily and contemptuously with his one eye, and said viciously, "Why, a little girl can actually pull up the Lightbringer? She can't even knock down an adult man. Well, why doesn't such a beautiful little girl find a man to marry and is still here competing for the title of savior?" He didn't dare to say that the ceremony was a scam, because the miracles of the Dragon God Church and the power of the Light Messenger were there. Euron Greyjoy's words were unpleasant and greatly insulted Daenerys. How could Melisandre endure this? Someone actually looked down on the god-chosen savior, and she wanted to step forward and use magic to punish him. But Daenerys stopped Melisandre, knowing that this was an opportunity to show her power. She held the Lightbringer, walked up to Greyjoy, and said coldly, "Do you want to taste the little girl's sword in your mouth?" Looking at the confident Daenerys in front of him, Greyjoy's blue one eye jumped uneasily, but his greed for Daenerys and her power still overcame his uneasiness, and Daenerys' age and his thin stature also made him lower his guard, so he put on his armor, picked up his sword, stood up, and responded to Daenerys' challenge. Everyone made a clearing for them, so Greyjoy and Daenerys prepared for a duel in this clearing. Everyone is looking forward to this duel. Some people hope that the savior Daenerys can show her bravery so that they can rest assured of their loyalty, while others want to see the Lightbringer in battle. The power of. There was 50 yards between them. Daenerys strode forward, and Greyjoy responded quickly. He seemed a little annoyed. Apparently, when he was dueling with a girl, the other party's initiative made him feel slighted. With only 10 yards left, Greyjoy stopped and said, "Have they told you who I am?" Daenerys snorted contemptuously, "Some dead man." She continued to step forward, unmoved. Greyjoy was even more angry inside. He stared at the girl's eyes, expecting to see fear in her eyes. He liked to take pleasure in destroying the souls of people around him. Even all his brothers were disgusted with this in him. "Why aren't you wearing armor, little girl?" he asked with a strange smile. "Is it because you can't wait to lose to me so that you can throw yourself into my arms?" Daenerys ignored his provocation, held the sword in both hands, assumed a fairly standard ready posture, and then replied, "To deal with scum like you, I don't need to put on the helmet box." However, Greyjoy seized the opportunity for her to speak and rushed forward quickly from the side. From Daenerys's movements, he could tell that the girl in front of him had truly learned swordsmanship. Her movements were quite standard, but there is not much practical experience. He nimbly attacked from the flank, and stabbed Daenerys's throat with precision and viciousness with the long sword in his hand. This direction is neither high nor low, which is quite difficult for a novice like Daenerys, especially when she is not strong enough. She can only try to dodge, but the initiative in the battle lies entirely with Greyjoy in hand. However, Daenerys's reaction disappointed him. She didn't dodge, she just leaned back slightly and swung the Lightbringer in her hand towards Greyjoy's sword with all her strength. "Do you want to fight head-on and fight me?" Greyjoy is a little puzzled. The other party is just a little girl. Why should she compete with him for strength? Especially from this angle, according to the principle of leverage. Definitely Greyjoy doesn't know this. But he knew the general pattern. Daenerys, who was originally weak, would suffer. Isn't this just asking for trouble? However, when their swords came into contact, Greyjoy knew that he was wrong. Daenerys's sword was heavier and sharper than he imagined. His sword was split in half almost the moment it came into contact, and he himself was shaken back by the force. The next moment, Daenerys immediately received a swift thrust, as if the contact just now did not cause her any reaction at all. Greyjoy had no chance to react. Daenerys put her whole weight on the Lightbringer. The sword pierced Greyjoy's plate armor as smoothly as a knife cutting tofu, sank into his chest, and then came out from behind him. "Wear out. No blood comes out." The next moment, Greyjoy's armor immediately turned into a hot red, and the place where the Lightbringer pierced simply melted into molten iron. Immediately afterwards, Greyjoy's whole body burned with golden flames, and he was burned to ashes by the flames without even making a sound. The flames and high temperatures on the Lightbringer immediately shocked all the onlookers. They could see that Daenerys's own technology was not superior, but she only had powerful power. But this instant kill victory relies entirely on the power of Lightbringer. Someone had an idea and immediately went to check Greyjoy's broken sword. They found that the broken edge of the broken sword was completely melted. With such a sword, what other weapons and armor can stop her? The fanatical believers knelt on the ground one after another. The way Greyjoy died after being stabbed and burned to death was not the same way the legendary White Walkers died after being stabbed by Azor Ahai with Lightbringer. After Daenerys killed Greyjoy and won the duel, she held the sword in one hand, breathed a sigh of relief, then looked around and asked loudly, "Who else wants to challenge me?" She looked at Prenda and Aegisan, Bald Salo and Dario Naharis, the Tattered Prince, Marrow, Harry Strickland, etc., all of them were first-rate heroes, but all the people who looked at her, whether they were mercenaries or knights, all lowered their heads. So she nodded with satisfaction and returned to the stone platform. At this time, Melisandre finally stood up. She cleared her throat and announced in a solemn tone, "The ancient book of Asai predicts, after the long summer, the stars will weep blood, and Azor Ahai will die in smoke and salt." The land of smoke and salt was reborn, and the dragon in the stone was awakened. The so-called land of smoke and salt is exactly where Her Majesty Daenerys was born in the storm, Dragonstone. And the magic dragon in the stone. Someone immediately carried the 3 petrified dragon eggs. Everyone had heard that Governor Illyrio Mopedus bought 3 petrified dragon eggs and gave them to Daenerys and Khal Drogo as wedding gifts. But now when the 3 dragon eggs appeared in front of everyone, they were surprised to find that the surface of the dragon eggs was already covered with cracks, as if a young dragon was about to break out of the shell at any time. Following Yeting's arrangement, Daenerys inserted the Lightbringer between the 3 dragon eggs and activated the power of the sword. The golden flame immediately devoured the dragon egg. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Dragon Egg's reaction immediately became intense, and the broken eggshell moved. After a long time, the 3 dragon eggs were broken open, and the 3 young dragons broke out of the shells in the flames. One of them is red, the other is green, and the third is golden. The 3 young dragons followed Daenerys's legs, struggled to climb onto her shoulders, and surrounded her neck intimately, as if children were playing on their mother's body. This scene, which seemed to be the fulfillment of a prophecy, shocked everyone even more. Isn't this the dragon in the Awakening Stone? There is almost no doubt that Daenerys is the reincarnation of Azor Ahai. So Melisandre shouted, "After a long summer, the stars will cry blood, and the cold darkness will cover the world. At this terrifying moment, a king will pull out the burning sword from the fire. That sword is Light Messenger, the red sword of heroes. The one who holds this sword is the reincarnation of Azor Ahai, and he will become the only king in the world. He will save the world and drive away the darkness. And Daenerys Targaryen is the last princess of the Targaryen family and the legitimate king of the 7 kingdoms. Now, she has drawn the sword to choose the king in front of everyone. Look! The promised sign has now come true. Look, that is the bringer of light. Azor Ahai has returned to the world. Rejoice! For the warrior of light. Rejoice! For the agent of the dragon god. Rejoice! As the only king on earth. Pentos's guards knelt down first without a word, followed by her Dothraki hordes. Melisandre was the first to place the scepter at her feet. "The chosen king," she shouted. "The chosen king," she heard Harry Strickland echo. "The gods' chosen king," Mero called Dayan. After them, the merchants and nobles also knelt down, followed by the mercenaries. No matter which mercenary group they came from, Dany only had to look at their eyes to know that they had surrendered to her. This is the case today and tomorrow. Likewise, until eternity, it is not a surrender that is afraid of her power, but a sincere surrender from the bottom of my heart." Daenerys Targaryen stood up, her golden dragon hissing and exhaling wisps of white smoke from its muzzle, and the other 2 joined in its roar. They spread their translucent wings and beat the air. As a result, the dragon clan's loud music filled the night sky. This was the first time in hundreds of years. Chapter 174. The sword-drawing ceremony was quite successful. In fact, after everything was over, most of the people present followed the previous oath and were truly loyal to Daenerys. Among them, most of the people sent by the governors of the Free Trade City chose to be loyal to Daenerys. Although they say they are governors, they are actually a group of merchants who pursue more economic interests and do not have such a big need for governance. This is why these city-states choose to pay regular protection payments to nomads like the Dothraki. One of the reasons for the fee. Now facing the powerful dragon god cult and Daenerys who was chosen by God, the first thing these people made was to surrender and join. Definitely, there is another reason, that is, there are an endless stream of new products in Pentos recently, such as crystal clear glass, smooth and exquisite porcelain, and recently there are cloths and solid cement that are dozens of times cheaper than in the past. They even heard that Pentos is developing a substitute for parchment, paper made from plants. The new paper is not only cheaper, but also whiter and easier to use. This endless stream of new products quickly swept the market of Essos, making the merchants of Pentos make a lot of money. Daenerys was also considered the richest person in the world. The businesses of the governors of the other cities in the Free Trade City have lost a lot of money under the impact of these more exquisite and cheaper products. This led them to believe that Daenerys or the Church of the Dragon God had mastered some technologies beyond this era. So when the governors saw that Daenerys had become the chosen king and had soaring momentum, he hurriedly came forward just to be defeated by Pantos in the future business war, and even get a share of the pie from Pantos. The above are the choices of most of the 893 cities in the free trade city-state, but there is still one city that chose to fight against Daenerys, and that is Braavos. The 9 free city-states are 9 independent political systems. Their biggest connection is that they share a common origin. They are all descendants of the original Valyrian colonists, so in essence they do not exclude Daenerys, who has a dragon rule, because the Targaryen family to which Daenerys belongs is Valyrian, and it was the Valyrians who led their dragon army to colonize the free trade city. However, Braavos is an exception. This is the only free city-state that was not founded by the descendants of the Valyrian people, but a secret refuge for people who did not want to be colonized by the Valyrian people. Compared with other city-states, the cultural traditions of Braavos are completely independent. In addition, Slavers Bay in the south of the Free Cities is unwilling to accept Daenerys' rule. There are many small city-states in this area, as well as 3 large slave ports Yunkai, Mirian, and Astapor. The slave trade is the absolute pillar industry of Slaver Bay, and the ruling classes in major cities are the largest slave traders. For the kind and compassionate Daenerys, the slave trade is unacceptable. Although she does not directly outlaw the slave trade, her policies always target slavery intentionally or unintentionally. This is her relationship with the slaves. Bay's most irreconcilable contradiction. In fact, although Daenerys did not ban the slave trade at Yeting's suggestion, the number of slaves in Pentos is still decreasing. This is definitely due to the impact of new technology and policies provided by Daenerys. AEDC, nowadays, the production of goods in Pentos has a trend of industrialization, and this production model is contrary to slavery. According to the experience gained on Earth, as the world of A Song of Ice and Fire with the emergence and popularization of Zebism, slavery, as a backward system, will soon be impacted and eventually disappear. In addition to these business nobles, the mercenaries who chose to be loyal to Daenerys most readily were the mercenaries. This is normal, after all, who wouldn't want the power of following the dragon in front of them? Definitely, half of the reason why the mercenaries are loyal to Daenerys is superstition, but the other half is strength. Daenerys' original personal charm, Pentos' rapid development and wealth in a short period of time, and the strength of the Dragon God Church all told these mercenaries that Daenerys had great potential and was not short of money. What are you waiting for? Mercenary groups that work purely for money, such as the Windblown Group, the Stormcrows, the Second Sons, and the Lancers, were the first to respond to Daenerys' call. Other small mercenary groups also followed suit. Now they are willing to so many people joined that Daenerys had to send someone to select them. After all, they are mercenaries. Not only are their personnel uneven, but many small mercenary groups or individuals are simply unable to adapt to the strict disciplines of the army and the large corps that require high coordination requirements. But Daenerys' army still expanded greatly. However, among these mercenary groups, the most difficult to conquer is the Golden Group. Because, since the creation of the Golden Company, they have always been quite hostile to the Targaryen family. How could such a mercenary group join Daenerys' camp? In the Free Trade City, the Golden Company is regarded as the largest, most famous, and most expensive mercenary group. Although mercenaries have always been notorious for being capricious, the most honorable thing about the Golden Company is that they never break their contracts. Their motto is "Words are like gold." This mercenary group has more than 10,000 well-trained warriors. Although the number is not as large as the Dothraki warriors under Daenerys, it can be regarded as a force that can decide a large battle. However, Daenerys is quite confident about conquering the Golden Company because she obtained secret information about the Golden Company from Yeting and understood the origin of the Golden Company's Targaryen hatred. The original founder of the Golden Company was Aegar Rivers, Cold Iron. He was the legalized illegitimate son of Aegon IV, the mediocre king of the Targaryen dynasty. In other words, he was also a Targaryen. In a battle for the throne called the Blackfire Rebellion, Aegar Rivers took the wrong side, and finally had to take his loyal descendants of the Targaryen royal family into exile in Essos, and established the Golden Company. Because of this, the Golden Company has been opposing the Targaryen family for more than 100 years. However, although Aegar River, the founder of the Golden Company, and Daenerys' ancestors are in opposing camps, Daenerys is definitely a descendant of the winner of the battle for the throne. Now the Targaryen family is in the 7th century. The rule of the country has still been overthrown, so what is the conflict between them? No matter what, a dragon is a dragon. However, in addition to the above people, the most powerful force attracted by this sword-drawing ceremony belongs to the rulers of Dorne, one of the 7 kingdoms, the Martell family. The Martell family is actually a help that comes to their doorstep. Because the hatred between them and Robert, the ruler of her 20 kingdoms, is really too deep. The Martell family can be considered a noble family that attaches great importance to family ties. During Robert's rebellion, the princess of the Martell family and Prince Rhaegar's concubine were completely RD and killed. Even her child was thrown to the ground. However, the murderer who caused all this, the Lannister family, was immediately reused after Robert became king. The Lannister family was originally the powerful guardian of the West. At the same time, the Lannister family's daughter Cersei became after becoming the queen, her twin brother James became the royal guard. In other words, the Martell family would have no chance of revenge without overthrowing the current king. The cunning head of the family, Doran Martell, could only endure his sister's hatred and lay dormant. Now they have endured it for long enough. Although Prince Rhaegar ignored the existence of his original wife and was jealous of Robert, which led to the subsequent rebellion and made the Martell family quite dissatisfied with Targaryen, they and Targaryen were still the same. The family has been married for generations, and now Daenerys is the only one who has the ability and the desire to overthrow King Robert's rule. Joining Daenerys' side is also the best choice for the Martell family to seek revenge. In addition, Daenerys also needs the presence of the Martell family. After all, if she was going to counterattack Westeros and attack the 7 kingdoms, she would have to cross a strait from the Essos continent. The existence of the Martell family can give them a suitable landing place for the army. Definitely, when negotiating a secret agreement with Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper, the Martell family's request for a marriage between Doran's son, Quentyn Martell, and Daenerys was sternly rejected. The one who spoke was the Pope of the dragon god Melisandre. She knew about the relationship between Daenerys and their divine envoy, but it was not convenient for Daenerys to speak. The woman refused to do so in person. However, for an alliance like Martell, who did not become a direct subordinate and was only maintained by secret agreements, how could trust be maintained without any hostages or secret agreements as a bond? Finally, after meeting the divine envoy Yeting, Oberyn came up with an idea. He suggested that his niece, Arianne Martell, claim to be a convert to the dragon god, and then join the Church of the Dragon God as a saint serving the divine envoy. In this way, the alliance can be considered strong. After all, divine envoys will never deceive mortals, haha. Pictured is Arianne Martell. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.